Let's blast off. There's a lot that there's a lot going on in the world. Let's pop in. Let's lock in. Let's do it. What was I gonna say? Okay. FBI raids John Bolton's. FBI raids John Bolton. Trump DC patrols. Is Chicago next? Trump military DC patrols. Is Chicago next? Daniel Besner on. D. Besner will be on to talk Israel, Ukraine, U.S. foreign policy. And later at 3 p.m., we will conduct the annual government wants 10% stake in Intel. Annual Hasanabi community census. Get in now. Twitch.tv/Hasanabi. Oh, yeah. Also, Cracker Barrel has fallen. As a fire schedule for Census Day, will we have to fill anything out? No, it's just doing polls in the chat. We always do it in the chat polls. That's how it works. All right. Boom, 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 boom. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get it twisted. Let's get it twisted. Sell census data to Palantir. Yeah, everybody always is like, wow, what are you doing with the census data? It's just a community thing. Okay, that's it. 3 p.m. PSD or ESD. There has never been a moment where I've ever fucking given you ESD. Even when I'm in ESD time, even when I'm in the East Coast, I still go off of PSD time. Okay, don't ask me that question. Don't do it. Daniel Bessner is going to be on at 1 p.m. PST. Yes, the community census happens once a year. It's on this website if you want to see the previous censuses. Sensei, brilliantdrink.github.io/Hasanabi-census. And it's got data from 2020 to August 2024, bodged together in like 4 hours. Okay, but I'll improve it later. Brilliant Drink has done this, and we'll get to it. You got age, gender, political ideology, ethnicity, religion, sexuality, height, trans chatters, location, salary, education, V card, weebs, diet, neurodiversity, and gaming frogs. We should do a cats v dogs question in the census. Well, the census is so long that I don't want to add any more. Okay, every year I feel like we add more shit. Also, I saw this. Every generation of Twitch streamers, before we dive into like the news head first, every generation of Twitch streamers has this exact same issue. Here is Stable Ronaldo calls out the fakeness in the streaming industry, saying people genuinely don't like each other anymore, and he can't figure out the reason. There's plenty of money, viewership, content. I don't know why this is a thing. This has happened in every single generation of streamers, okay? Every single one. Every single one. I came up with the crop of talent, like before my generation, the generation prior to mine was like Ninja, Tfue, Pokimane, right? They all popped off. And then my generation of streamers were like, myself, XQC. I think it was like Nick Merckx as well, kind of. You could put them in there. Who else? Mizkif, that was another one. Ludwig, right? Cutie Cinderella. Like, this was our gen of content creators. And if you notice, like, there's a lot of fucking drama in that gen. Like, there's a lot of people who have actively fought one another and don't fuck with each other at all any longer. And now this generation after us is like Aiden, Speed, Kai, and then I guess like the second version of that has been like the Phase Boys as well, if you want to loop all of them under the same umbrella. And there are always content creators in this space that just kind of do their own thing. Lyric is a great example of this, right? Moon, Lyric, like there are always content creators that like kind of do their own thing, right? But there's also content creators who collaborate with one another. Like I would say Keizo is like this new generation's version of like Lyric, right? Keizo just does his own thing. He like collabs with people every now and then, but he just like stays out of everything. He stays out of trouble. He stays out of drama. He's great. And basically, I mean, he's been doing his own thing. He's popping off. Whereas like a lot of these other guys, they collaborate with one another, myself included. Right. And ultimately, from my personal experience, what I've seen that has taken place is that when money gets involved, when there's too much money to be made, when there's too much clout, okay, I think ultimately people find themselves fighting over one another and like fighting for like the seat at the top, I guess. It becomes like very transactional. Relationships become very transactional because like before 2020, a lot of content creators were just like friends with one another, like legitimately friends with one another, right? In my generation of content creators, like the top dogs, we were all friends with one another. We like legitimately hung out with one another, you know, Trainwrecks, XQC, even fucking Asmongold from time to time. And it wasn't like a thing. It wasn't a big ordeal to just like collaborate with someone, right? And at the time, their opinions weren't the way that they are. So when you say like ew, you're reflecting on that with like today's opinion. You're reflecting on what these guys look like now or what these guys say now, but it wasn't like that back then. They just weren't like that at all. And I think throughout time, I feel like those collaborations became like more serious, more professional. Like there was an expectation, a tit for tat. It became way more transactional, right? And people got segmented. I think like the big nuclear bomb in terms of like my generation, like no longer collaborating with one another and no longer having a sense of community with one another, I would say was like during COVID, XQC's mistreatment of other content creators kind of started this drama a little bit because he would just like treat every content creator like a fucking NPC. And because he was rewarded tremendously for that, no one really said anything about it. And a lot of people just like kind of let it happen. It wasn't even just GTRP. It was like Among Us, GTRP, No Pixel. Every time there was like a serious collaboration, like that's where it initially started. That's where the fissures initially started. And, you know, there were some people who called him out. I wonder who those people are. And, you know, they got yelled at quite a bit. And I was doing that as a friend, too, like at the time, because we were still close. And then after that, it just like kind of kept spiraling over and over again. Then there was the Kick ordeal. A lot of these guys were getting money from a crypto gambling casino online. And, you know, of course, when financial interests come into play, there's also obviously like people that want to protect their bag. And then Kick gets created as a website after stake.com is banned off of Twitch. And in the process, a lot of the people that went over there they had a lot of animosity. They had a lot of anger towards those who didn't. And then I think like the big nuke obviously was the Miskiff Trainwreck stuff, right? And it just imploded, and people became extra cliquey, and no one ever hung out with one another the same way ever again after that. But that was just my gen, right? A long, convoluted, complicated Twitch history. And now I think this is happening for these guys as well a little bit, you know?
That's the smallest one here. I don't think my take on this is, I actually have a take. Let's start. Oh, should I start starting?
It's very cloud driven. Ludwig talked about how so many creators talk to him after streamer games about not being invited, including Neon. That's so funny to me because like I've been friends with most of the people that were there for literally like the past 6 years. Okay, including all the new talent. I'm pretty friendly with them, and I'm not upset. You know what I mean? Like, who the fuck is someone random getting upset after like never having any relationship whatsoever with these people? I'm not even fucking upset because I understand, like, you know, you have to fund these big initiatives, and some of those companies that fund these big initiatives are obviously going to be companies that work with the state of Israel and are not too fond of my commentary on that same state of Israel, or even actively fund Donald Trump's big beautiful bill. So that's so funny that like people get mad. They really hated you for being the face of getting steak banned off Twitch. Yeah.
Myself into this a little bit. I don't actually think streamers have egos. I think streamers just don't like each other. Simple as that. And it's not based off egos. It's just based off they just don't like each other. And people fake friendships. And put question marks all you want. I'm going to be honest. I just don't think people like each other. I don't really know why. I think this shit, there's plenty of money for everyone. There's plenty of viewers.
This is the healthy attitude to have on this, for the record. I do think there's a lot of ego involved as well. But I think there's a lot of clout, there's a lot of ego, there's a lot of money, there's financial interests involved as well. And once like money, in my experience, what I have realized is once money is a part of this process and people get driven by that financial imperative as opposed to just like taking taking whatever money you're making and like being excited at the prospect, being excited at how fortunate we are to even be at this position, instead of just like actively just like hanging out with friends and trying to make people entertain, trying to entertain people. It turns into this like transactional relationship. Like who can I do this with? Who can I get clout off of? That kind of thing. I can't imagine having to pretend to like my coworkers to make more money. I am fortunate enough to have never had to do any of that. You act like it's not a job. I mean, it is a job, but it's also not a job, if you know what I mean. It's not like a real fucking job, especially for like a lot of content creators. What kind of, like, look, I log in every day. I clock in. I'm doing fucking news commentary for like, 10 hours, not 10 hours, but like 8 hours, right? A lot of these guys are just hanging out. They're fucking playing golf. They're rizzing girls up. You know what I mean? Like it's a job in the sense that like it's still supposed to be entertaining. You're supposed to be doing that. You're okay. People are saying 6 hours. Fucking chatters. Jesus Christ. Like for a lot of these guys, they're just like having fun and filming themselves in the process of having fun and making a lot of money. And it's amazing. And I say this as someone who thinks my position, which is definitely a little bit more serialized and a little bit more serious than what these guys are doing, as an unimaginably immensely fortunate, immensely privileged position to begin with as well. So anyway, no love for Wubby7. Wait, what do you mean? What happened? No, dude, what are you talking about? Wubby's doing incredible shit with Will right now. Social media is way more exhausting than desktop. I disagree with that. As someone who does both, you're actually 100% wrong. Leaked? What? I didn't leak shit. He said that's true. If you think it's bad on mainstream channels, it's extra bad in the VTuber space. No, I will stand on that. I think desktop streams are harder and worse on your fucking mental and have a worse toll than doing IRL streams. I do both. I'm telling you, I've done both for years. Okay. One of the best aspects of Twitch was that there is like a big community here. There was a massive community here where content creators would like genuinely get together and hang out and have fun. And that's gone. And that kind of sucks that it's gone. Okay. It fucking sucks. But that's why I love the FaZe boys, because they just still keep that energy. Yeah, but you don't do both at the same extent. Like you ain't IRL streaming 8 hours a day for weeks on end, lol. You just flop for a few days. I mean, but in my experience, when I do like 4, 5, 6 hour IRL streams, like dude, I recognize this when I started going to the protests. Okay. I was in the middle of these fucking protests getting shot at for like 4 hours straight, getting fucking pepper sprayed and shit. And that literally took less out of me than sitting here and having to listen to chatters yell at me over fucking minutia. I would rather go to a protest and get shot at, okay, than have to sit through like a drama segment with members of my community fucking chirping at me over like some minor disagreement that they've decided is the absolute worst possible thing that could have ever happened. Yeah. I mean, fair law. Also, chat. I mean, flip. It's fine. I'm telling you, I love this community. Lol, he hates this chat. Lol. No, I love my community. I'm an incredibly fortunate person, but I'm telling you, it takes a fucking mental toll. Okay, I'm telling you, you're so sensitive, Hasanabi. Wait, what? Anyway, I'm demanding an apology for you interviewing the ice cream man. Anyway. Does chat appear in your dreams? Not as much anymore, honestly. I don't know what happened. I don't know at what point. Because, like, remember, I used to talk about how, like, I would debate in my dreams, right? Like, I would come up with, like, talking points sometimes. Like, I would come up with, like, commentary in my mind while I'm sleeping, while I'm dreaming. And then I would wake up and then I would write it down. I'd be like, damn, that's a good fucking talking point. And I'm always on. But... -10 aura. I'm always on. I mean, it's not aura. Nothing I do is aura. Let's be real. Maybe if there was like daily fun like the old days, it wouldn't be so bad. Can't believe. Can you believe we used to watch real estate videos? Modern chat would kill you for that. No, I know. I'm working on it. I'm working on it actively. That's why we're doing the community census. That's why I'm bringing back Chad Vice with not one but two special guests. Second special guest is being announced right now at this moment. Chad Vice tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific time. Vanilla Mace and Phase Adapt. That's right. It's going to be a fucking banger. Okay. I am so stoked. Yep. Weak ego, to be honest. Wait, what? Weak ego, fake friend, do IRL every day. Okay, dude, train is the same. Weak ego, to be honest. You don't have to ban guys like that for saying that. It's fine. You can say stuff like that. I'm not even like, I'm not frustrated by any of this, by the way. I'm just telling you, like, this is in spite of all of the tremendous fortune that I have seen in my fucking life and in my career in particular. I don't know how we moved on to like IRL. I think is like more fun to do and less like brain and soul sucking than a desktop. It could just be a me thing, to be honest. Bet you won't read this. Do you think about chat after you nut? See, do you understand what I mean when I say this shit is worse than fucking streams? Do you understand it, chatter? Do you understand it better now? Do you understand it better now? Do you understand it better now? Okay. Example proven instantly. Okay. Instantly proving my goddamn point. Listen. The thing is, the reason why I say IRL is better in general than desktop is also because like, I think being outside is healthier than having all of your interactions be on the internet. That's it. Because like I interact with fans nonstop. In the real world when I go out, right? And none of them are asking me questions like that. Because as I always say, human beings in the motherfucking real world, in the meat space, behave very differently than human beings on the internet. The same guy who will say some shit like that is not going to do that. Anyway, that's a joke. Anyway, I'm not like being serious or sincere about that.
Shit for everyone, and there's plenty of content for everyone. I don't really know why this is even like a thing. Like I just don't know why people are scared to say they don't like people. That's the smallest one.
Don't you feel like you can? One guy did say, "I'm shaking. D owns you" or something. Yeah, exactly. That's the one time where like an internet cringe lord behaved like he was an internet cringe lord, but in real life, and it was such an inconsequential experience. It was such an inconsequential experience overall, and it was like a major fucking own for that person. That you know, it basically the problem took care of itself. And speaking of which, by the way, that very same person. Who has egged on his fans to like stalk me in real life because the Destiny owns you guy was from this sex pest who has now been outed as a pedophile as well from his community. Here's what he recently had to say, and then we're going to move on to the news.
If this is the norm for political commentary, you could very easily justify attacking or killing Hassan. 100%. If it's going to be that every single Zionist, every single Jew, everybody in Israel, even your content creator's wife or whatever in the West Bank, like if that's the norm, then you could basically kill every online content creator you want. Like if that's how we're going to run these norms down, it's fucking insane. I don't know, somebody find the quote of what I said. And I will keep saying things like that, and I'll constantly keep doing things like that. And I hope Hassan keeps.
He's so badass, dude. He's so badass. I like that. I like that. It's just. This is not what I said at all. Like, my point is, and I'm going to repeat it one more time, okay? It doesn't matter who this person is. It doesn't matter if it's your favorite content creator. It doesn't matter if it's me. If I went in, joined the Israeli occupying force, okay? Trained with the Israeli occupying force, went into the occupied West Bank territory on a night raid, and I got shot at, that's free game, okay? Because the occupied people have a legal right to militarily resist against the occupational force. That's it. That is a matter of international law. Take it up with the UN. You can clearly, people try to actively move the conversation away to something I didn't say because that's a position that you can't really defend, right? That's not like, you can't just be like, I don't think that occupied people have a legal right to militarily resist, engage in armed struggle against an occupational force. This has nothing to do with like individual content creators. Like what I'm talking about is very clearly well defined within international law and also reiterated over and over and over again. Okay. What he's trying to say is, oh, dude, you should go and kill Hassan. You know, that's it. Doesn't matter who it is. New name, child molestiny. Yeah.
Fucking crying about it. And I hope that fucking Ethan misquotes me because of some shit Hassan said. I don't give a fuck. If this is
Ethan and Hila scold Destiny for helping Hassan reframe the conversation to victimize himself. Destiny has nothing to do with what Hassan did to me. Hila, he had a flawless victory, and his dumbass gave Hassan the ability to cry and be victim. Okay, that's interesting. Anyway, ooh, gray bars again. The gray is back. Yeah, this is not the first content creator that is like actively called upon their fans to kill me, and it probably won't be the last. As a matter of fact, this fucking dipshit was hanging out with famous pedophile neo-Nazi. Now we know why he was hanging out with him on his own stream. Also, at the time when that pedophile neo-Nazi Sam Hyde was also doing the haha Hassan Piker, I'm gonna come to your house and kill you. So this is not the first time he's done shit like this. See Sam Stinney. Anyway, Stockman pieced out on his podcast with Epstein. Yeah, that's bullshit. He's just trying to, I think the reason why his second in command, who utilizes his community because he has no motion outside of that, to engage in these like stalking operations, is only distancing himself because he is an advertiser of Ethan Klein's podcast. And he feels like it's going to look bad for Ethan if Ethan attacks me. And then I turn around and say, dude, you're getting money from this dude who is giving you all these talking points and this community that is like actively defending someone trying to procure child sexual abuse material. Like, what the fuck? You have no leg to stand on. So I think Dan thinks if he just like cuts ties for a little bit after actively defending Destiny, hopefully that'll give Ethan some stronger legs to stand on, when in fact it doesn't work that way. I mean, this is his business partner. Dan Saltman is the person that is the connective tissue between these two people. And he is directly funding. He's one of the last remaining podcast funders, redact.dev, as you guys know. That's Dan Saltman's company, and he's giving the talking points to Ethan, and his community is actively in here. They're in here probably right now, losing their fucking minds, looking for something that they can misconstrue, as they do every single day. This clip was posted on the Destiny. Wait, what? They're defending D, losing my mind at the complete inversion of reality here. Then I remember that the H3 sub has been completely taken over by Destiny fans. They all think Destiny's a victim of a years-long harassment campaign by Hassan when it's the other way around. Hassan ignored him for years. Yeah, so that's awesome. The only thing I will say here is that Destiny has been dealing with Hassan for far, far longer than Ethan. Ethan literally said that Hassan brought up Destiny the first time they met in person. He's survived like 6 years of Hassan's constant campaigns against him. He used to not pay any attention to them, but that led him to getting the current reputation he has now, where Hassan will lie about him to others, painting the most horrible picture of him that still somewhat persists. There's a reason why people that get yanked from Hassan's cult literally only have to watch like one full video of his to realize he's been lying about him all this time. It's quite hard to overstate just how deep the Destiny Hassan feud goes. When you've seen how bad these communities are at their worst for like over half a decade, you lose any hope that the high ground will matter. What I really find funny about this is not only is it just the exact opposite of the reality, but my favorite is when they do like the liberal Zionist position between me and Destiny. The liberal Zionists like, well, both sides are kind of fucked. It's like, no, this is not a both sides situation, man. This has been an active cyber stalking operation with mass harassment initiatives. They always do this with like LSF too. Like LSF is literally run by a moderator in Destiny's community. And if you look at the top post in LSF, it's like Hassan sneezed wrong. And it's like 7,000 upvotes. And then all of the fucking comments underneath it is like, yo, he's the worst person that's ever existed, you know? And then they have the audacity to turn around and be like, Hassan obviously brigades this Discord. It's like, it's weird because it doesn't seem to exist. The Hassan defense on LSF. It's just no motion overall because you just push through it. And as long as you push through it and as long as you abide by your values and you know, keep doing your own thing, a lot of these guys who are just like utterly repulsive, truly evil individuals, they just, you know, they keep fucking themselves up anyway in all of their anger, in all of their resentment, in all of their animosity. If you design your entire worldview around hating one fucking person and you don't have any sort of like discernible values, you are inevitably going to find yourself locked in to, I guess, defending Israel's genocide. Yeah, one community constantly harasses, doxes, stalks your entire family, anyone you show any positivity towards with botted email campaigns to deplatform, deport, and arrest you. And then this community says, wow, they fucking suck. Also, he's a pedophile. These are the same thing. DOJ dropped the Ghislaine Maxwell tapes. We're going to be taking a look at that as well, of course. It's a dead sub that gets propped up by Epstein guys because their larger subreddit is, the easier it is to get threads posted there to get to the front page of Reddit. Yeah, but I don't think that matters all that much. In the grand scheme of things, like I think there's only the more the spotlight is on a person like Destiny, the more even people who know him as like, oh, the fast talking liberal debate guy who owns Republicans realize that maybe he's not such a good guy. And they come to that conclusion on their own. They don't need someone to like lie about who he is or whatever and actively make content about how much of a piece of shit he is by framing things he's saying in the most negative ways possible for 6 years onward. Whereas for Destiny, he has had to do that. And because my position is not exactly popular among neck-bearded incels online who dominate every single fucking space, there is definitely a robust market for fuck Hassan style content amongst apolitical content creators and slop tubers alike. But even then, organically, those guys have realized maybe we shouldn't be aligned with this fucking weirdo loser who is so toxic that he has actively harmed people in his closest orbit. Reminder that Hassan's Freak Squad has threatened to murder Destiny several times. Never happened. Never said that. I can understand why he doesn't give a fuck. He's been targeted by them for years now and has zero faith in Twitch. That's just a lie. And it's not just a lie, but it's like straight up projection. And it's additionally funny because like I've always taken an approach of just gray rocking. That's what it's called, right? When you're dealing with narcissists. I've always taken this approach where I just like don't, you know, for years and years, I did not talk about Destiny at all. And I just kept doing my own thing. And in the beginning, obviously, my community was much smaller than his. And then it grew. And then he never let that go. He never let that, he never lived that down. In the process, he clearly did not take care of his own son, who is now an out and about Nazi. He let his own son be in his Discord where, you know, he turned into a Nazi. I feel terrible about that. And also has done a bunch of illegal things. And every single time he does something like that, his exit ramp has always been, and this is not dissimilar to like what XUC would do back in the day when, you know, people would yell at him about gambling. He'd be like, well, what about Hassan? And then people would be like, oh yeah, you're right. Hassan is worse. Like that's what he does. But after the 11th time that you get like caught doing some fuck shit all on your own, eventually, you know, your people in your fandom are obviously going to go, yeah, man, you're kind of fucked up. Isn't this just internet drama? I mean, seriously, why give these people the time of day now? I mean, this is crimes. It's not just internet drama. He was gloating because you lost a chunk of your audience because of the Palestine coverage and that he was going to have more viewers this year, lol. Anyway, I think they're using bots on Reddit too. I'm from Europe, and I've noticed that some threads are being made late at night and early in the morning. No, he has a lot of European social democrats who hate me. Yeah, yeah. Also, yeah, one thing that I realized that I thought was perhaps a little bit misplaced, but I thought it was like indicative of this space and what it had turned into. Is the last thing I'm going to say before we move on. Was that I thought the top dog in Twitch politics was Asmongold, but something shifted. Something shifted yesterday, and it turns out we actually have a similar number of viewers. As a matter of fact, I mean, he was hitting like 50K every day. He was always like 20K above wherever I was. Sometimes even 60K. I would have like 30K to 40K. He would have 60K. And now it seems like we have the same number of viewers, which is, I don't know what it is. I'm not even saying that I'm not making any inferences about this. I'm not saying that this is like something that Asmongold himself did, but it has been a significant decrease in the viewership after Twitch said that they were going to go after bots. Like I said, though, I don't even think this is like his own doing, for the record. Because like, if you remember when I was talking shit, when I was talking shit about Kick initially, when I was in Japan, not the last time, but like a couple times ago, it was weird that like the three people that were talking shit about Kick was Misgif, Pokimane, and myself, and we all got weirdly botted at the time. Like we had clearly like our view counts shot up, and it was weird. It was like normally in Japan, it would be, especially in the weird hours that I was streaming, I would normally have like 20K, but this time I had like 40K. Now, it could be because people are getting bored of Donald Trump and pro-Trump content and pro-Trump sentiment. That could probably be a part of this. Or, you know, maybe whoever was doing it stopped doing it potentially. Why are bots bad? It's because it's fake. It's not real viewership. And Twitch is a very top-heavy platform. So if you are, no, it was bots. You got 30K in under 30 minutes every single day. Yeah. The thing is, when you have, when you're at the top of the just chatting section, for example, then it's very top-heavy platform. People just come and watch you. Like organically, real viewers come and watch you as well in that process, right? Whereas, I mean, that's one of the biggest values for botting. And I think people do it for advertisers as well to like justify higher pay rates when they're doing sponsored campaigns and things like that. So what is this? XQC responded. Hassan talks about how right-wing commentary has popped off due to Asmongold and points to XQC copying the same rhetoric. Monkey see, monkey do. See Asmon pop off, making Nick Fuentes jokes. Greatest example. XQC doesn't have any worldview, just saw Asmon. Is it for kick? Is it for clout? Is it for Asmon? Is it grift? Is it for steak? Brother, you got us all biting our nails about this one. He makes fun of conspiracy Andes, yet pushes the most schizo narratives. How is this a schizo narrative? You literally saw Asmongold popping off, and you decided to do political commentary as a meta. And you tried to do the Asmongold style political commentary, and your audience fucking screamed at you for it. Thank God there were fucking juicers who still had like, you know, brain cells and we're like, what the fuck do you mean? Why are you trying to talk about politics like Asmongold? You're not doing a good job. His own community was cooking him for fucking months. He knows that that's the case. I think that's part of the reason why he stopped. The craziest thing is like, if XQC just stuck to not doing gambling and not collaborating with like some of the worst fucking content creators and just stayed playing video games and eating his toenails and having a good time, high intensity fucking gaming sessions, he probably would be still one of the top content creators on the fucking platform. But you know, sometimes you make these decisions. Sometimes you make these sorts of decisions, and you know, you have to live with the outcome of said decisions. All right, let's move away from this stuff and let's get to the news. Because in about an hour, I'm going to also have the man, the myth, the legend, Daniel Besner, to talk about U.S. foreign policy. We got a new memo that identifies 45 words and phrases for the Democrats to avoid, alleging terms turn voters off. They span 6 categories from therapy speak to explaining away crime. Now, some of these I probably will agree with, but given where it's coming from, I will most likely find myself at odds with it. Having said that, I am going to go in first with the FBI raid that took place this morning. John Bolton, former Trump advisor John Bolton, is under the crosshairs of the Trump administration. We'll talk about the UN officially declaring North Gaza a famine and many other issues pertaining to foreign policy and America's involvement when Dan Besner is on in a little bit.
Just moments ago, FBI agents were seen searching the home of President Trump's former National Security Advisor, John Bolton. I want to go to our chief Washington correspondent, John Carl. And John, this is the latest indication the Trump administration is targeting the president's political enemies.
I mean, Bolton was very high on the president's enemies list. Federal agents searched his home just a short while ago. In this video we have, you can see federal agents descending upon his home this morning. They conducted the search. He was not at home. Sources familiar with the matter tell ABC News that the FBI carried out this search, and they did it related to allegations that Bolton is in possession of classified records. George, while the search was underway, FBI...
By the way, let him fight. Let him fight. Let him fight. Let him fight. Oh, amazing. 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 Okay? Come on, man. If you think I'm going to be like, oh my God, this is a terrifying use of law enforcement, it's like, yeah, I agree. This is clearly Donald Trump maliciously utilizing law enforcement in ways that he claimed Joe Biden was doing to him against his own personal enemies. Having said that, however, John Bolton is a freakish fascist monster. So if you think I'm going to be like, wow, I don't do it, I'm here to protect John Bolton, you're out of your dang mind, okay? This is war criminal on war criminal violence. Let them fight.
FBI Director Kash Patel posted on social media, "No one is above the law. FBI agents are on a mission." Now, some people would say that mission is retribution. Bolton had become a prominent critic of President Trump. The administration had already stripped him of his security detail despite an ongoing threat from Iran. And less than 2 weeks ago, George, on This Week, I asked Bolton if he was worried that he would be the subject of retribution, further retribution from President Trump. He told me he considers this the, quote, retribution presidency.
And John, of course, President Trump was indicted for taking classified documents to Mar-a-Lago.
Indicted for taking a lot of classified documents to Mar-a-Lago and hotly contested the idea that his home was searched for those documents.
John Carl, thanks very much.
Oh, yes. On July 19th in New York, New Jersey.
We're going to be there. A lot of people are going to be there.
A lot of people.
I'd like to thank you all. Do you have any questions on FIFA, first of all?
It's going to be a big event at the Kennedy Center. Do you intend to take part in it? Will you have a part to play on December 5th?
I might play. I mean, I see the money that these soccer players, you know, we call it soccer, but I see the money that these soccer players are making. I may try and play. I'm a very good athlete. My son.
Okay, there's a really funny like, oh, you're just now telling me that the FBI raided John Bolton's house. I didn't know. Moment from Donald Trump. Not even here, but he had another like quick question answer session. Okay? He's like, oh, I had no idea. I could actually use the law enforcement. I'm top cop. I'm top cop of the nation, which he's not. Okay. But it's awesome. It's just awesome that every single fucking thing that conservatives complained about with Joe Biden, some of which was like at least within the margins, like close enough to the truth, and many that was just utterly ridiculous. All of the things that they fantasized about Joe Biden doing to conservatives, Trump is literally doing to sometimes other conservatives like John Bolton, neocons, and also anyone else. Anyone else he declares an enemy of the state. This could mean predominantly black neighborhoods. This could mean random agricultural workers, whoever, people who have hurt the feelings of the great state of Israel. Anyone and everyone is a direct priority target for this administration at any given moment. Okay? They come after you with no repercussions whatsoever, and they bring down the entire might of the state upon you. This is literally what conservatives were fearful of forever. All the way from Alex Jones talking about like Barack Obama has black attack helicopters circling around my neighborhood. They're going to put me in a FEMA camp. They're going to black back me and put me in a FEMA camp. All the way down to like fucking the Dan Bonginos and everybody else talking about like deep state pedophiles being protected by the government. Donald Trump is literally doing that with Jeffrey Epstein and all of the Epstein affiliates that he is currently defending. Every single fucking thing that Republicans have complained about and fantasized the Democrats doing, the Republicans are doing proudly, and they champion it. They're like, hell yeah, baby. You're doing the right thing. Keep doing more of it. It's crazy.
My son is a very good athlete, and he's a good soccer player. He's on the tall side for soccer. He's 6'9".
Ass hat projection much?
On the tall side. It's on the tall side, but he's good. But
how can I be projecting here? I'm not even a fucking defender of the Democratic Party in general. I'm just a defender of the truth, okay? I'm not even defending the Democratic Party at all in this process. I'm simply telling you what the Republicans are doing, and you go, projection much? What do you mean? If this is a frustrating reality for you, then you have to work on that on your own. You know what I mean? You have to just like go back and think like, why is this frustrating to me? Also, this hat is the ugliest fucking hat I've seen. And goddamn, Trump merch is already not exactly known for being good. Okay, but holy shit, this is just fresh ass. Okay.
I may put on shorts. I look extremely good in shorts and join the play. You know, no, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be good.
Many foreigners who want to come to attend the event are concerned about the visa situation. Can you reassure them?
Yeah, they're going to have a very easy time getting in. Certain countries are going to be very, very easy, and other countries are going to be obviously a little bit more difficult. Would you like to explain that, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a process set up that we'll be implementing on getting visas approved. Everybody will be thoroughly vetted, but they'll be welcome to this country. It'll happen quickly, and we're excited for them to come. So I would hope that around the world, people know that the United States is excited to bring their family here to enjoy this event.
America welcomes the world.
Yes.
And I can really, from the collaboration that we have, testify.
This stuff is so funny. FIFA is a fascist organization. Yes. Dude, I feel like for FIFA, you have to do like a litany of war crimes, okay? Like in order for FIFA to like collaborate with you, in order for FIFA to like work with your country specifically, you have to be known for like some fuck shit. So it is somewhat of a surprise that we haven't done this before, right? They've always been this way. They've always been this way. FIFA is, the F stands for fascism. Fascism, international fascism all the time. That's what FIFA is. Okay? World Cup in Qatar, then USA, then Saudi. Yep. FIFA's like, let me look at the numbers. Let me look at the numbers on the board. Okay? And so it's not a surprise to me that they're doing this with America. Okay? But what's hilarious about it is that they're doing this with America, and the American fascism movement has grown to such a degree and has put the crosshairs on foreigners in general and hyper focused on them so much that it is undermining the goals of having a World Cup in U.S. territory. Because you're literally, you're cooking tourism because you're actively, tourism has plummeted in this country. Why? For understandable reasons. Even some of my friends who normally come and visit me from Australia chose not to come this year because they didn't want to get fucking arrested at the border and then deported back to Australia. And who knows for how long they would remain in a detention facility. Okay? There are plenty of people who previously would have thought to come to the United States of America who are actively avoiding the United States of America. So this like international event that we're going to have on U.S. soil is happening at a time when Donald Trump's administration is saying like, we don't want you to come here. Do not come here. Do not come. New Willie Mac video, must watch. Dude, that is the most embarrassing thing that you could post in the chat. Take a fucking week off and really reconsider your priorities. Oh my Lord. Anyway, it's just like, yeah, FIFA is a football organization with a sole goal of bringing the fun of soccer to the whole world. Yeah, that's what's supposed to be the principle behind doing these kinds of things, right? Doing these kinds of like global, worldwide affairs. Apparently, he's flipping on D. Good, okay. He's eating good off of shitting on me with talking points that he got from Destiny's community for years and years. And this is what it took for him to finally be like, yeah, maybe he's not such a good guy. Will he go back and apologize for the videos he made? Will he turn around and say, hey, by the way, every single thing that I wrote about Hassan, I got from Destiny's community and actively collaborated with Destiny, who has now been outed as a pedophile? My bad. Anything short of that, and I don't know what we're doing here. I mean, I'm glad. I'm glad he's on the right side for once. Stop taking the bait. Trump stole the trophy from this summer's tournament to the right in the vid here. No, I know. It was really funny. Nah, he made a video about you like two weeks ago. I know. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. As I was saying, you got a situation where like the American government is actively saying, do not come here. We will literally arrest you. We will look through, we will scour your social media profiles to see whether you are worthy of coming to the United States of America, including banning travelers from entering the country after they made plans and spent money to come here because they have fat JD Vance memes on their fucking phones, man. They're like, hold on. Oh, you want to come in here? Let me take a look at your phone. Ridiculous prospect, by the way. What do you mean you demand this level of surveillance to enter the country? Oh, you got fat JD Vance on your phone? Sorry. Not allowed. You're fucking banned. That's literally what we think China is doing. I think this was a hoax. No, it wasn't the JD Vance meme. The reason that they used, aside from the JD Vance meme, was that he had a fucking photo of like a pipe, and they said this was drug paraphernalia on his phone. He had a photo of like a wooden pipe. Does that make sense to you? No, that doesn't make sense either. You don't need to say fat JD Vance when he's already fat. True, baby JD Vance. I don't think you guys understand. The crazy part about it isn't like, oh, it was the fat JD Vance photo that he had on his phone, or the photo of a pipe when they were like, what, do you smoke weed? And he was like, yeah, of course. It's not illegal. And then they're like, fuck off. You're not allowed to come into the country now, you criminal scumbag. The real point of contention here is the fact that they even looked at his phone to allow him to enter the country as a tourist. Do you not understand how ridiculous that is? That has had a massively consequential chilling effect on tourism in this country. Tourism rates have plummeted because why the fuck would anybody want to come into the United States and have the Gestapo go through their fucking phone and potentially put them in prison for an extended period of time, in an immigration detention facility for an extended period of time? Customs and Border Protection agents searched nearly 15,000 devices from April through June this year, nearly 17% spike over the previous 3 months high in 2022. The real issue is the chilling effect it has on all travelers. You chatter here, I skipped visiting my American friend because of literally this. Yeah, I mean, I have friends who wanted to come to the United States of America that is not coming to the United States of America for this reason. I myself have changed travel plans that I had, travel and content arrangements that I had made in Cuba. I canceled the Cuba trip for this reason, because once I got detained by Customs and Border Patrol on my way back from France, okay, and they were asking me about fucking, what do you think about Donald Trump? What do you think about Israel? What do you think about Hamas? I was like, if I go to Cuba and I come back, they're going to say, that's a state sponsor of terror. You are a fucking fully fleshed out terrorist. I'm not trying to go to jail, okay? Yet. The China trip is still on. China, as it stands currently, is not considered a state sponsor of terror by the American State Department. But it's crazy, man. You ain't being let in if you go to Cuba. Yeah, that's what I mean. If I went to Cuba, I feel like they would just not they would just not let me come back into the country at all. I would just get arrested on the spot.
And I just sent a picture from somebody that wants to be there very badly. He's been very respectful of me and of our country, but not so respectful of others. But he'll, I'm going to sign this for him, but I was sent one, and I thought you'd all like to see it. That's a man named Vladimir Putin, who I believe will be coming.
That's crazy, dude. They'd make you into the modern day William Worthy. If you folks don't know him, look him up. Also, it's a Phil Ox song. Vladimir Putin, my best friend, very good guy. Love him so much.
Depending on what happens, he may be coming and he may not. Depending on what happens, we have a lot of things happening over the next couple of weeks. But I thought it was a nice picture of him. Okay of me, but nice of him. So that was very nice that it was sent to me. Okay?
Okay.
About the fact that yesterday a big U.S. factory was hit in a Russian airstrike in Ukraine. What's your reaction to
I
that?
told him I'm not happy about it. And I'm not happy about anything having to do with that war. I said I settled 7 wars, and actually, if you think about pre-wars, add 3 more, so it would be 10. I thought this would be in the middle of the pack in terms of difficulty. Now, I'm not happy about anything about that war. Nothing. Not happy at all. We'll see what happens.
Dude, it's remember when I told you he just keeps making up new wars that he has ended? The number went from 6, which again, up for debate certainly, to 10. He just added extra wars that have started and have been stopped by Donald Trump. He's just going to keep increasing the numbers because it doesn't matter. None of it is true. Okay? None of it. None of it is true. By the end of this month, if the Epstein stuff keeps pumping, he's going to be like, I've ended 100 wars. Every week, there's like 10 new wars that he's ending. I've ended 100 wars. You know the 100-year war between France and England. They were fighting each other so vicious, so mean. I ended it. I ended that. No more war. World War II. I ended that myself.
I think over the next 2 weeks, we're going to find out which way it's going to go. And I better be very happy.
A very good call with Prime Minister Carney of Canada yesterday morning.
Yes.
Actually, Canada is taking away some retaliatory tariffs.
He's removing his tariffs, yeah.
Exactly.
He's removing his retaliatory tariffs, which I thought was nice. And we're going to have another call soon. Okay. Yeah, we had a very good call.
You're getting closer towards an agreement on trade?
I like him. You know, look, I'm fighting for the United States, Canada, and Mexico.
By the way, this is from friend of the show, Nikki McCann Ramirez for the Rolling Stone. New analysis finds Trump family has raked in $3.4 billion off the presidency. Remember when they go like, AOC and Bernie Sanders have made so much money. They made so much money. They're so rich. Like they just lie and they'll be like, AOC's a multi-billionaire. She used to be a bartender. It's like this guy is literally doing that, man. This guy's actually doing it. Once again, it's projection. Every accusation is a confession. Every accusation is a confession. These guys will be like when you say that about Nancy Pelosi, there is validity to that. Okay, there is truth to that. I'm not going to sit here and fucking defend Nancy Pelosi, who is seemingly one of the best stock traders in U.S. history. Okay, most likely trading on non-publicly available data. Okay, well, her husband, Paul Pelosi is the GOAT at trading. And there's truth when you criticize those people. But these guys will then, and even Nancy doesn't do it like this. Okay, this is just like transparent graft. Okay, this is just mostly cryptocurrency schemes that he has implemented in broad daylight without any of the regulatory agencies actually turning around and going, hey, we should probably do our jobs and penalize this kind of behavior. And it's insane. It's insane that he does this. And if you ask the average Republican, they'll be like, Trump didn't take a salary. He didn't take a salary. He's just a great businessman. He is not corruptible because he has a lot of money. It's like, no, dude. He's always been a fucking failure of a businessman. But of course, it doesn't matter. You can be the biggest failure as a businessman, but if you're the president and you're running the country like a fucking mafia boss, then you could just like steal as much money as you possibly want. You can do cryptocurrency schemes. You can do pay for play. It's so crazy. It is so wild how open this corruption is, and people do not care about it. I can't comprehend how little, like, I don't understand how someone could live in this world and be an American dude who like works as a plumber, living in the fucking Midwest, goes out and votes for Donald Trump, and he's like, he's gonna clean out the swamp, the DC swamp. He's gonna be an anti-establishment candidate. He's gonna do the best thing. He's gonna fix the housing market, all this shit, right? And then he doesn't do any of the things that he promised, and all he does is basically arrest your fucking neighbors, utilize the military as a domestic police force in direct contravention of the Constitution, basically makes a fuck ton of money in the process by just like farming the presidency as a pay for play scheme for himself, enriching himself and his family. Okay. And no one understands, like no one recognizes this reality. It's slapping you in the face every day that Donald Trump wakes up and goes into the White House. It's like he's taking his dick out and hitting you in the face with it if you're a Trump supporter, and going, yeah, you like that? And Trump supporters look at that and go, hell yeah, Mr. President, slap me in the face with your cock one more time, please. It doesn't make any sense. How do you not realize it? It's not like, this is not a sophisticated way of doing things, okay? At least with like the Clinton Foundation, right? Those guys are demons too. They're demonic. But at least there was like more sophistication in the ways in which they operated, you know, through the NGO structure. These guys are like, I'm a criminal. I love stealing your money. You're a fucking idiot. Keep getting mad at Mexicans, and you will forget that I'm stealing your money. And I'm going to give all of it to Israel. And these guys are like, yes, Mr. President, it's fucking amazing. Oh, please give Israel more money. Oh, they need it. I don't need it. My house is underwater from the hurricane, Mr. President. But don't worry, even though I signed the loyalty pledge to Israel, they need it more than me.
A lot of our business over the years, over 25, 30 years, especially during the Biden years. They took a lot of our business, and it's basically all coming back into the United States now. We're hot as a pistol, and it's coming back in. Because of tariffs and the incentives we give, it's coming back. And it's impossible, I think, for another country to stop it. And we are working on something. We want to be very good to Canada. I like Carney a lot. I think he's a good person. And we had a very good talk yesterday, so I think it'll be good.
Question about the search of Ambassador Bolton's home. The vice president recently just did an interview saying that...
Yeah, America's hot, you know, like the impact site of a nuclear first strike. Hot. You know, not hot in the way that you would want it to be. Perhaps a little too hot, okay? Maybe we should cool it down a little bit, I think. It's also insanely fucking annoying that in this entire process, like, once again, people just eat up whatever the fuck he's saying. Like, it's that easy. You can just keep repeating a lie over and over and over again, and your sycophantic cult fans are just going to believe you. They will refuse to reckon with the horrifying nature of American existence that is unfolding in real time in front of their eyes, because the president that they love, that they somehow have deluded themselves into believing cares about them, is telling them that shit is actually fine. It's actually awesome. It's actually great. He's not even trying that hard, man. He's not. He just says whatever comes to mind. He's not like a particularly interesting, particularly sophisticated, particularly intelligent person. He's not even actively trying to craft a narrative that makes sense. He has an opportunity to do so. He's not even doing so. He just goes, nah, believe me, everything is so good. Everyone else is saying things are so good. And people just eat that shit up. They believe it. It's crazy.
It's about classified documents, but that there's also broad concern about him. What are the concerns?
Well, I haven't spoken to Pam in the group yet, but I will be. I saw that just like everybody else. I try and stay out of that stuff. I'm allowed to be, and I'm chief law enforcement officer, believe it or not. You know, I don't like to go around saying that, but I am. That's the position. but I purposely don't want to really get involved in it. I'm not a fan of John Bolton. I thought he was a sleazebag, actually. And he suffers major Trump derangement syndrome, but so do a lot of people, and they're not being affected by anything we do. I don't know anything about it. I just saw that. I'll find out about it. But if you believe the news, which I do.
You make it sound like he's the papacy in the 10th century or something. Dude, that is exactly what I'm saying. Because that is exactly what's going on. We have unprecedented, unfathomable access to real-time information in the palm of our hands, okay? Because of the internet and because of smartphones, we can literally look shit up in real time. And yet, with the unimaginable bounty presented by the democratization of information, we have a situation where the average person's mindset reflects the mindset of a medieval peasant. It's fucking insane. The average American in 2025 believes almost the same exact shit that a fucking medieval peasant believed. And a medieval peasant would have gotten one-shotted by eating a chicken nugget or like hot Cheetos. It's crazy. And it blows my mind because it's like there is a real regression taking place in real time, and seemingly no one cares about it because everyone is too invested in purchasing Labubus or, you know, consuming whatever fucking slop they got in front of them to take notice of like how society is unwinding in real time. I don't understand how people they don't get frustrated about this every fucking day. Oh, well, I got Dubai Labubu matcha lattes that I can drink, so it's fine. Everything is getting worse and worse and worse. Part of it is, of course, because people go, what the fuck am I supposed to do? Okay, I go to work, I put my head down, I try to make some money so my landlord can have a comfortable existence. You know, I directly fund my landlord's lifestyle. Like 40% of my salary is directly going to him, okay? And he deserves it. He deserves more, okay? And then the meager wages that I have remaining, the little bit of disposable income that I have, I spend on Dungeons and Dragons, or I spend on Magic the Gathering cards, I spend on fucking Warhammer 40K figurines, or I spend on this or that, and Labubu and matcha Dubai chocolate lattes. Because that is the only thing that gives me like a crumb of autonomy in my life. A silly purchase decision that I made reminds me that I am human. I do have free will. I'm exercising it right now. So I can't even fucking get that mad at people for feeling so dissuaded, for feeling so powerless in the face of it all. I buy shoes, not Labubus. Yes, Labubu is a simple catch-all terminology for insert whatever the fuck you like. I mean, I have my own version of this as well. You know, I like nice clothes. I like fashion, right? So I engage in consumer escapism with regular frequency. The only difference is like by design, because of my job and because of my worldview, I'm like constantly fucking tuned into this shit and constantly yelling about this shit. Everyone deserves a little treat every now and then. Make no mistake. I'm not saying don't do treats, okay? Treats are very important. You like fashion, but you're not good at it. Explain. Okay, well, that's subjective, I think. And you can't find like a really bad fit post 2024, let's say 2023, 2024. So, you know, we had the dark period, long hair Hassan. We need to just destroy that. That leave it in a dustbin of history.
I guess his house was raided today, but my house was raided also, called Mar-a-Lago. They went through everything they could, including my young son's room and my wife's area. They went through her drawers, as the expression goes. They went through everything you can imagine. And when she came back, she said, she's very neat, you know, she's meticulous. And she looked and she said, whoa, this wasn't the way that she had it. So, you know, so I know the feeling. It's not a good feeling. Thank you.
The funniest thing is, like, this was incredibly avoidable for him, the raid on Mar-a-Lago, because the DOJ under the Brandon administration was still operating on don't rock the boat mentality. And as a byproduct of the don't rock the boat mentality, the DOJ was trying to do everything by the book, and they just kept saying, like, please, we know you have these classified documents in your house. Can you please give it to us? And he was like, how can I lie to them? He was telling his fucking lawyers, like, how can we hide these documents? For no reason whatsoever either. Like, I genuinely think to this day it was just a flex. I think that it was just straight up just a flex on Kid Rock and shit, and like dentists that wait, hold on. New start time 1 p.m. Okay. Yeah, he was just a fucking he just wanted to have classified files at his house, at his place of residence, just so he could flex on like dentists that have Mar-a-Lago gold cards or whatever. I mean, he put it in the fucking bathroom, man. It's not like he cared about it, you know?
How long will you give Putin?
A couple of weeks. We're going to figure it out. We'll find it.
Do you think you'll have to intervene at some point?
Look, it takes two to tango. You understand that. I wanted to have a meeting with those two. I could have been at the meeting, but a lot of people think that nothing's going to come out of that meeting. You have to be there. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. But we're going to see. In the meantime, people continue to die. But I've solved seven of them where they were in wars for 31, 35, and 37 years. We had 3 of them that were for more than 30 years, Johnny, and I got them solved. And we solved one that could have been a nuclear war with India and Pakistan. That was getting ready to be a nuclear war. I solved them all. And this one, I thought we would have had it done by now, but it's more different. There's a lot of anger, a lot of hatred. There's a tremendous amount of hatred there. So, but we'll see what happens. I think in 2 weeks we'll know which way I'm going. Because I'm going to go one way or the other. And they'll learn which way I'm going.
Mr. President, if I got 2 questions for you, one on FIFA, the other one on DC. Let's talk. Can you talk about the economic impact that FIFA will have in these cities, and what's your message to the mayors to get their cities prepared, not only the beautification process, but also the safety aspect?
Well, Los Angeles is an example. You know, it's poorly run. We have a mayor there that can't even get permits to the people that lost their houses. Lee Zeldin got every permit. The hardest permit is the federal permit. Within 20 days, every single permit was there for the people to build their houses. But people are writing us and they're saying they won't give us. The mayor is incompetent. The governor's incompetent. You know, Gavin, I know Gavin very well. He's an incompetent guy with a good line of bullshit. And he doesn't get the job done. And frankly, those people want to build their houses. It's terrible. They could have been built. Some of them could have been built already. But think of it, the federal government that has the most complex part, and it's the most complex environmental thing to do. We got it, everybody had it within 30 days. And they're not even close to getting their permits. And now they're talking about taking some of those sites and building low-income housing on them. These are high-end neighborhoods. And I'm all for low-income housing. I built a lot of low-income housing. I know all about 236. I know every program that there is in the government.
Is the permit thing real? No, he's just using that as... Dude, first of all, nothing that Trump says is real, okay? Is there a permit structure in the rebuilding? Absolutely. Should there be regulation in the rebuilding of some of these buildings? Duh, no shit. That's the reason why they got fucking eviscerated by a goddamn wildfire. And Donald Trump has decided there should be no building code whatsoever so that they can expeditiously prop up these buildings. I don't want to get into that right now. Because we have Daniel Besner that I am going to be talking to right now because we're going to move into the 6 wars, now 10 wars, all the wars that Donald Trump ended because he's big, he's bold, he's beautiful. And we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about Israel, some of the wars that Donald Trump hasn't ended yet. Israel, Ukraine, and Russia. And I'm having him on right now to talk about it. Hello.
Hey, Hassan, could you hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly. Daniel Besner is in the building. Ladies and gentlemen, Danny, been a long time, and this is your first time on the broadcast. How would you present yourself to the people that might not know of the good word that you put out there on the American Prestige?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. Really appreciate it. So basically, I'm a historian, But beyond that, I've kind of spent the last 10 or so years thinking about what a genuinely left-wing approach to American foreign policy would be in an age of imperial decline, in an age of capitalist domination, and how the left should respond in an era when the United States still remains the world hegemon and is doing things like supporting the IDF, sending arms to Ukraine, having 750 military bases abroad, the dollar is hegemonic, and things like that. So basically,
So you're
what
saying
could a
you're
leftist
woke,
do?
tanky, red
Woke, tanky.
fash,
Yeah.
all of those things. Like you're, you know, when people encounter your work and they have like the globe emoji on their Twitter profile, they see what you
Precisely.
have to say and they go, "This is the scariest person on the planet."
That's precisely right. But I'm a little bit weird because I'm also sanctioned by Russia. One of the few Americans who has been personally sanctioned by Russia. So they don't know what to do with me. But yeah, the globe emoji people do not love me. And, you know, a lot of people don't love me, but I'm fighting the good fight just like you are, sir.
Yeah. Well, I haven't been sanctioned by Russia, but they did actually dunk on me in one of their like crazy ads that they had done. I actually kind of want to show this to you right now. Chatters, do you have that ad? Let's show it to Daniel. I want to see if you can notice where they end up using a version of me as a way to say, like, you know, which side are you on? Let me see if I can find it. Hold on.
No, I'd love to see that. It was a shock. I think I'm on the same list as like Larry Summers. There's a couple of dead guys on there as well. So, you know, it's an honorable list to say the least.
Yeah, let's see. Hassan Piker Russian military ad. Maybe this is the one.
Oh, they're using you as a recruiting tool.
No,
Interesting.
they're in the reverse. they're using my likeness and saying like, which side are you on? You want to be a gay guy that live streams, or you want to be like a big burly man that fucking dies in one of the grayest places you've ever seen, so that the Russian government can get like extra, like a piece of extra territory. But hold on.
Why not both?
Yeah. How about be a gay guy who live streams and do that?
What's the
Shouts out
problem?
to Jackson Hinkle. He's doing both. Here, I think I found it. Okay. Hold on. I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see it as well.
Yeah, let me see it.
Here it is. Okay. Let's see if I can find the actual moment. Oh, here it is. Russian military recruitment ads. Okay. And it's incredible. Let's take a look. What are our... Okay. How did I make the goddamn Russian government my op? That's insane. Okay. Who is over there? Like, former Hasanabi head. They got my worst era too. They got my worst era. FSB's hate watching out here, bro. What the make me bright makeup and streams? Like they did like a mishmash of different and struggle periods throughout my streaming
It's like the
career.
Taylor Swift tour. But
Yeah,
for
they put on they said like you put on makeup and you wear a lot of jewelry and you paint your fingernails and then you pose in front of your nice supercar. I guess the sanctions were hitting them hard, so they couldn't put the Porsche there, so they used whatever this car is. I think maybe it's a Corvette. I can't tell.
It looks like AI.
Yeah, could be. But this is so we both got we've both been unjustly maligned by the Russian state while simultaneously being called operatives of the Russian government, because that's like the main thing. Like I've always been anti-NATO for obvious reasons. I'm Turkish. I know what NATO has done in terms of its own version of Operation Gladio in Turkey, and how much of a formative role it played in Turkish politics and still does to this day. And that is where like a lot of my enmity brews against NATO. And of course, when I talk about NATO incursion immediately, or even just like the truth about what has taken place thus far with the ultimately unjustifiable and illegal invasion of Ukraine that Russia committed to, everyone always would be like, oh, you're just defending Russia.
Yeah, I get that a lot as well. And then I just come back with, I've been sanctioned. What has happened to you? I've put my body on the line in a way that they haven't, but they don't really cotton to that. that often.
So you're anti-NATO as well. So let's start there. Why are you anti-NATO, Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an important question because when people point to American hegemony or the American empire, one of the things that they'll point to as a representative of why this is a good thing is NATO. Famously, NATO was founded in 1949 to keep the Germans down, the Americans in Europe, and the Soviets out. And one could argue that NATO did that. But what I think it really represents is the fact of the United States remaining involved in global affairs as the hegemon in a way that, if you look at the historical record, has done incredible amounts of damage to the world, both over the course of the Cold War and after. And so actually going against NATO is a way to argue that the United States should allow other world regions, particularly very wealthy world regions like Europe, to determine their own politics and to determine their own approach to the military and to some degree the economy as well. So even if NATO is the quote unquote good part of empire, and personally I don't think there's ever such a thing as a good part of empire, going against it is a way to really articulate that you don't think the United States should be involved in other world regions to the degree that it has been, to say nothing of, NATO expansion helping engender Russia's Ukrainian invasion of Ukraine, the Ukrainian sounds like a WWE thing, and other negative consequences that it has had. But yeah, I think it's an important thing to be against, and an important thing to be against the United States dominating these forms of global alliances, because that's a form of American imperialism as well.
Yeah. So what do you have to say to people that would retaliate to what you're saying right now with the question, well, what about Baltic states? Like they all actually wanted to be a part of NATO. All these states wanted to be a part of NATO.
Yeah, and this is the whole empire by invitation argument. And for that, I just return to actual history and the amount of damage that the United States has done abroad. For example, during the Cold War, the U.S. tried to overthrow regimes abroad about 66 times. And even if that didn't succeed, like it succeeded in Iran and Guatemala and Chile and elsewhere, even if you were just targeted by the United States, you were more likely to experience mass deaths, displacement, and things like that, to say nothing of what the United States has done since the end of the Cold War and the global war on terror. Millions of people directly dead as a result of the war on terror, millions of people indirectly dead as a result of the war on terror, deracination, displacement, and all of those things. And I think if you just look at actual history, you can't actually have the quote unquote good parts of the empire without the bad part of the empire. So what does that mean? In the short term, that means that there's going to be some negative things. For example, like Russia invading Ukraine or the Baltic states being threatened by Russia, right? This is a reality that people on the left can't ignore or deny and say, oh, Putin will never do it. Putin will never invade Poland. That's ridiculous. But Putin could very likely threaten the Baltic states. But again, what we on the left we need to look at structure, the actual structure and condition. And what that reveals, again, is that there's no such thing as just the good part of the empire without the bad part of the empire. They go together. So if you don't like Iraq, if you don't like Afghanistan, you don't like Libya, you don't like the United States having 750 military bases, to get that down, to not do in Iraq again, you're going to have to also face consequences in other world regions. It's just looking at the reality of the situation. And you're not going to get the world that you and I want to live in, the sort of humanistic world where everyone's equal, blah, 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 with the American empire still existing. And so I think what I tell people is to take a step back and look at it from a macro perspective and a historical perspective. I'm a historian.
Yeah. So outside of NATO and outside of Russia and Ukraine, which we will get back to, there's obviously two incidents that have taken place in the same administrative cycle under the Biden administration that I think has played a formative role in redeveloping the Western world's perspective on America's role in global affairs. On the one hand, as I like to say, America joined or was already a part of active initiatives to bring Ukraine into the sphere of Western influence. But America joined in the aftermath of the invasion of Ukraine, the side of the battle with Ukraine for, the good side, if you want to, use good, bad dynamics there, is reductive for bad reasons. For the worst reasons, as a matter of fact. And I think that played a formative role in the continuation of the conflict. And we are now seemingly arriving at this conclusion that it's all lost and America's taking a big fat L here. And it seems like Donald Trump is trying to manage the empire in decline in the ways that he's doing. some bad and some we'll see if it's good or not. But on the other side of that, you saw all of that goodwill that America could have cultivated in the process of like, oh, we're defending Ukraine, no matter how heavy-handed it was and how much it damaged like the European economy, for example. October 7 happened. I would say as a direct consequence of the Abraham Accords and the continuation of that process under the Biden leadership and the expansion of the Israeli occupation and the allowance that the Trump administration gave that Biden continued. And then we saw that America does not care about the morality of the situation at all, which, of course, you and I never really thought that they gave a shit. No state actor really cares about the morality. They just have their own interests. But this, I think, has been this is almost like created whiplash for a lot of people who did sincerely buy in to the manufactured consent to turn around and take a different approach to say maybe America's not the good guys in all of these circumstances. Maybe America's world police is not about creating free enterprise and a just world filled to the brim with democracy. Exactly. Because, we associated ourselves and aligned heavily with Israel as it kickstarted its genocide.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I just think to underline what I said, there's almost not as good an example to point to as the fact that you can't have the quote unquote good part of the empire without the bad. Almost immediately, the quote unquote good defense of Ukraine, which I think you're correct, was total bullshit. If you actually look at what Antony Blinken, Secretary of State, or Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said, they're like basically, they said explicitly, we want to bog Russia down. The reason that we're involved in Ukraine, it's not for democracy. It's not for anything of this democracy versus authoritarianism stuff. It was just about bogging Russia down to make sure that something along the lines of Russia doesn't do what it did in Ukraine again. So it was really linked to these hard security interests and the United States' desire to be the imperial hegemon in every world region now and for always, which is ridiculous. And we could talk about China later if you want. But even if you were say, it was a legal invasion, it was a terrible thing that Vladimir Putin did and that Russia did. And even if you want to say that it was good to defend against them, I mean, almost immediately after you get funding for the annihilation of Gaza, you get a total support for Israel's annihilation of Gaza. And there's just no starker example of the fact that the quote unquote good empire can be had without the quote unquote bad empire, which means you need to get rid of the empire. The problem is the empire. The problem is not how the empire is used. It's the structure of imperial rule itself. And that's what I think needs to be the lefty position on this.
Yeah. So let's see if there's any disagreements that we can find in this conversation. I don't think there really is any, but I'm trying to figure out if there's anything that I could if there's anything that you could elaborate further on as far as
Sure.
I guess it's not necessarily a disagreement, but is it more so a question what do you think Joe Biden could have done, especially as it pertains to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, in
general,
or just in general, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing is, I think it is reasonable to argue that what happens in terms of Europe, in terms of European war, is of direct interest to Europeans, and I think that one couldn't deny that, and so. What the United States should have done, and should have done, frankly, 30 years ago after the end of the Cold War, and really probably didn't really need NATO in the first place, the more we learn about the Soviet Union, the more we discover that, for example, even Stalin wanted to make deals with the United States and that the Cold War was essentially an American project. But just bracketing that, let's say you need a NATO threat.
Big L for Stalin.
Big L for dude. Stalin got so fucked. Stalin thought he was going to be able to make deals with Truman, and he was literally flabbergasted that the Americans were just like, no, fuck you. We're going to constantly encroach on your territory and not care about what you did whatsoever. not to rehabilitate Stalin. He wasn't a good guy, but there's more going on there. But the United States shouldn't have ever been as involved in European affairs. And so what Biden should have done is that he should have used this as an opportunity to begin a security transition. And I think this is what needs to happen over the next several decades. And it would have been nice if it started in Europe, because European countries are quite wealthy and they could actually produce a defense industrial base that would allow them to intervene in Ukraine if they consider this to be a major interest of themselves. If the British, if the French, if the Germans, if whomever, the Poles really want to intervene in Ukraine, that they should be the ones responsible for it, and it should not be the United States. So what Biden could have done was to begin a security transition. And why I think it's important to kind of focus in on that is that this is what also needs to happen in East Asia, because East Asia is really a powder keg that could go off at any moment. And you have people within the United States who are under the fantasy, who believe in the fantasy that the United States is going to be able to remain forever hegemonic in Asia, like it's 1945, and the United States controls half of the world's exports. This doesn't take account of the fact that, one, China is way more powerful than it was in 1945, but two, China is also in Asia. And things like Taiwan,
which is
are
very
of more
noticeably
interest.
close to our bases and our security interests, though. Like, why is it right there?
Right, and it's really rude of China to actually be in Asia. But it's important. How dare they? It's important because it raises questions about what do you do with something like Taiwan, which is like, and again, in an ideal world as leftists, I think we would both agree populations of a country should be allowed to determine what form of government they have. But unfortunately, we don't live in an ideal world, and we need to take seriously things like power and interest and geographic location. So it would have been nice if he started to draw down in Europe, because that would have begun a process and gotten people within the United States, particularly the American state, ready to do drawdowns around the world. And so that's what I would have advised Joe Biden to do. But I don't think Antony Blinken or Jake Sullivan agree with that position, because, as you know, Americans are under the fantasy that they could dominate the world forever, which is ahistorical and frankly ridiculous. Doesn't take account of basic facts like the US and the G7 just control less and less of world GDP. So there's like a kayfabe element to American foreign policy that I think really winds up preventing it from making wise choices.
Yeah. So the question here would be, do you believe that Russia has genuine ambitions of territorial expansion in Ukraine, or even further beyond Ukraine, and or is it simply a matter of defensive posture for maintaining its security interests in its own neighboring region? Because I do go back and forth on this a little bit. Go ahead.
I think you go back and forth because the right answer is both. I think Putin absolutely has a vision of greater Russia, going back to this notion of Kiev Rus, this medieval empire of which what is today the Russian Federation and independent Ukraine were a part, going back to the medieval period. And he does believe that these peoples are essentially the same people. They have the same culture, and they need to be united. He clearly believes that. I also, with regards to the 2022 invasion, I don't think COVID helped Putin's psychology. I think, from what I remember, he isolated himself seriously, and this probably helped encourage the invasion. So there's a psychological element there as well, which is difficult to analyze, but is certainly true. But I also think that NATO expanding far into Eastern Europe, and with various administrations, particularly George W. Bush, basically saying that Ukraine is going to join NATO, was another cause. Yeah,
on
in Georgia,
which way out, he was like, it wasn't enough that I fucked the entire planet. Like, let's also throw another blow in the direction of Russia too on the way out. Fantastic work.
It was crazy, and people in his administration being like, "Don't do that. Like, why would you do that?" Like Boris Yeltsin in the '90s told Clinton, "Don't do these things." But yeah. Anyway, and also that led to his invasion of Georgia, Putin's invasion of Georgia in 2008, almost immediately after. So I do think that NATO expansion was a cause of Putin's 2022 and 2014, for the 2014 invasion of Crimea and the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Because you got to remember, Russians have long historical memories. Over the last 230 years, they've been invaded multiple times. First during the Napoleonic Wars, then during World War I. And this is something Americans don't know about. During the Russian Civil War, the United States, United Kingdom, and France dispatched troops to North Russia and further out parts of Siberia to defeat the Bolsheviks. After World War I, the U.S. sent troops to Russia to defeat the Bolsheviks. They also remember that. And then, of course, World War II with Operation Barbarossa. So there's a long-standing and understandable reason why Russia wants to have a security buffer zone. It's not totally insane for a Russian leader to want that. And I think that's was a major cause of the invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah. So there's a long-standing tradition for sure. And long-standing animosity there. But having said that, what do you say to some of these counter narratives that people present, such as Russia actually had to invade because they wanted to defend the autonomy of LPR and DPR? 14,000 people were slaughtered in the process with this like back and forth artillery shelling. Do you feel like do you feel like that's just marketing for Vladimir Putin and also people who push Z pretty aggressively online?
Yeah, I do think that's a form of marketing, and no, no nation needs to expand in such a violent way, and I don't think that the Russian security was actually under any genuine threat in the short or medium term. I don't think this is again what's so brutal about the United States. I think American leaders were just lying. I don't think they were ever going to let Ukraine or Georgia into NATO. I think that was total nonsense that they were essentially doing because the United States doesn't suffer the consequences of its policies. I mean, that's the fundamental truth of American empire, is that since the ending of the draft in the early 1970s, the bourgeoisie of the United States does not suffer the consequences of American foreign policy. We're incredibly insulated. And so George W. Bush could just be like, oh, okay, I'm about to lose. The Republican Party is about to be displaced, but let's have Ukraine and Georgia join NATO. Or various people within the Obama administration could make gestures toward this happening. And it's just total bullshit. And the people who wind up suffering, like always in U.S. foreign policy, are people abroad and not us here. We're just insulated from our hubris and our aggression, frankly, abroad.
With some exceptions, like 9/11.
Yeah, but I mean, the exception that proves the rule. You know, like 3,000 Americans versus 9/11 was horrible. You know, all the necessary disclaimers. Innocent people should never be killed for the crimes of their government. But that just again reveals how, for the most part, it's not millions of Americans that are suffering as the result of the American empire. It's millions of people abroad.
No, absolutely. I famously have a very similar opinion. It's actually one day removed from one fateful evening in August 21st, 2019, when I said what I said about 9/11 that people still consistently bring up. But let's
two heroes.
Yeah, let's move on from that. So I guess my question is, or not even necessarily a question, but the thing that I've been thinking quite a lot about has been this Vladimir Putin summit that took place with Donald Trump. It's not a secret that Donald Trump has a lot of reverence for what he perceives as like charismatic authoritarian strongmen, right? To a degree that I've never seen from any other American president, Republican or Democrat alike. Presidents have had much better relationships with foreign leaders, even adversaries in the past. But I've never seen someone have like an actual boner with respect to like the way he speaks on Vladimir Putin, especially someone who has much stronger terms for even the leader of a proxy like Zelensky. Where do you think this animosity towards Zelensky comes from for Donald Trump?
I think that Trump is a very personalist leader. He's not a policy guy. He's not a thinker. I think this is why it's kind of funny that so many people try to trace the intellectual history of Trump, because he's not a thinker. He's kind of an outer borough New York guy who made his career, one, due to his dad's money, but also by basically following his gut. And think vis-a-vis Zelensky, I don't think he liked that he felt that the client in the weaker position didn't show the necessary deference to the guy who had the power. And I think it's as simple as that, which is why when Zelensky went to the White House recently, he wore that like black bar mitzvah suit. He was very deferential to Trump. And he was doing what he should have done when he came earlier in the last few months. And so I think that it's really just that. And
a reality that European leaders have actually come to terms with, because the first term under the Trump leadership, they were actively undermining him. They kept making fun of him. It was clear that they did not appreciate. It's clear that they were like, this guy's a fucking idiot, which, I mean, he is. And these guys are right. Except that idiot does, run at least the Western sphere of influence. And therefore, you see a very different attitude from European leaders now, with like Rutte literally saying he's daddy. And all of these people that were around even or had an unfavorable opinion of Donald Trump now coming to terms with having to glaze Trump in an effort to get, like, I guess, in an effort to stop the bleeding to the best of their ability, which I don't think has seen much success anyway, especially with the universal tariffs regime that he's implemented, the economic deals that he's putting forth that look like tithing, like demanding more tithing from the vassal states, and I think that, yes, you're right. The relationship is just all about like how Trump feels about you and how you make Trump feel and stroke his ego. But beyond that, do you feel like Donald Trump has seen the writing on the wall about Ukraine's lack of manpower, for example? Because like if we're going to analyze the situation right now, my feeling after that Alaska summit was that this was truly the moment that spelled the end of singular hegemonic superpower America. This was like, we've talked about multipolarity existing in the world, and certainly there was in the Cold War, but this seems like it was the proof that multipolarity is here.
That's 1,000% correct. And I think what the most important thing to my mind there is that Putin was able to effectively, as far as we know, kind of sanction-proof Russia since 2014. And he was basically able to establish an alternative, not world order, it's not at that level yet, but an alternative space for Russia to interact in a way that it wasn't subject to the will of the United States totally. And I think you're exactly right. This is a transitional decade, and this is going to be looked back on by historians as a moment that indicated the United States is not, in sort of fancy terminology, the quote unquote unipolar power, or the hyperpower is another term that was, it's not the only game in town, that there are actual spaces that the United States doesn't dominate. Because basically what the Alaska summit demonstrated is that Putin doesn't really need to give the United States as much as he would have needed to 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that he's able to act with a freedom that was basically unthinkable relatively recently. And so I think that's true. And just to comment on the tariffs, I just think that, again, this is just another example of Trumpian nonsense, because you can't tariff goods and not do things like regulate monopolies or tariff financial transactions. In a world where the United States' economy is essentially organized around high finance and giant conglomerates, to tariff goods, it's pretending like you're living in 1890.
Yeah.
So I just it's just all part of this. This is why, to some degree, and I hope I'm not proven wrong as I'm dragged away by stormtroopers one day, but I don't think that Trump is going to be able to put together the type of lasting coalition that an FDR or a Reagan was able to put together, because I mean, obviously, I'm a fan of FDR, not a fan of Reagan, but those guys were able to do things like pump money into the economy to help the average American, and everything Trump is doing is not doing that. So I think this provides an opening for leftists to really rethink and offer alternative visions of the world that might not come again if we don't take advantage of it, because the liberals just aren't able to do it. I mean, liberalism is in total crisis. They're not able to really offer anything that addresses the problems, whether we're talking about capitalism or imperialism or how people should even live their lives.
Yeah. I think that the question I guess I have is do you feel like Donald Trump is going to, and we probably shouldn't speculate on America and Russian affairs. I feel as though both yourself, myself, and many others, including Zelensky himself, has been burned by making speculations about whether or not Russia really has that dog in them to go in and just like militarily dominate a country. A lot of people made predictions that came out to be wrong for once, and a lot of NATO enjoyers who are wrong professionally will never let you forget that. Having said all of that, do you feel like this is? Do you feel like the negotiations process, is it going to go anywhere? And also, do you feel as though Trump recognizes, or at least is like interested in communicating that this is over, that Russia has won? And that America made a bet thinking that it had its former superpower status and thought that it could just both economically and militarily dominate a foreign adversary by utilizing a proxy that was a standing nation state, a sovereign nation state like Ukraine, by offloading weapons into Ukraine with the hopes that like the battle lines would not look the way that they do right now, but instead just like push Russian troops back into the border and maybe have like active conflict there, and have that exist in perpetuity as the military industrial complex, it keeps racking up profits year over year.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the the stocks of the defense contractors since 2022, it's really crazy that they've just exploded. But in terms of your question, I think that Trump has a sense that this is not going to result in the type of American victory that an Antony Blinken or a Jake Sullivan, I'm not even sure Biden knew what was going on, expected, that they would be able to really bog Russia down forever, and Putin would not be able to sort of escape the purview of the United States, that we could sanction him, and that would be that. So Trump has a sense that that is not the case. But the issue is, I think what's the problem is that I'm not sure that Trump could offer Putin enough to get Putin to stop, essentially. On the other hand, I think this has been a grinding war for Russia as well. I mean, could you imagine the Soviet Union in 1970 not being able to just conquer Ukraine should Ukraine have rebelled like Hungary, East Germany, and Czechoslovakia did? No. So there's a relative decline in Russian power as well over the last 40 or 50 years. So that's why I think the thing to look out for is you don't want to get a Kashmir-like situation where it's just constant warfare. It bubbles up sometimes, it stops for a couple of years, then it bubbles up again. And that was what I was warning against from the very beginning in early 2022, that this could very easily turn into a horrible situation for actual people living on the ground there. Basically a state of permanent war. In a real way, not like the United States is always at war, even though we haven't declared war since 1942. Officially, we're always at war, but that you would have this bubbling up of conflict. And I don't think Trump is that interested in preventing that from happening, which to me seems like a likely outcome at this point, that it's kind of used by both the United States and Russia for domestic political purposes to shore up their own legitimacy, and Ukraine gets screwed in the short, medium, and long terms.
One thing that I've noticed in the way that Trump is communicating about this is that there's a little bit of a hand washing happening, where he just keeps saying like, well, Vladimir Putin could take over the entirety of Ukraine if he wanted to, and that's what he wants. That's the apple of his eye. But this was Biden's war. This was Zelensky's war. They started it. I didn't start it. Vladimir Putin told me directly at the Alaska summit and over and over again that like I would have never invaded Ukraine if you were still the president. Stuff like that. I mean, that's such a ridiculous that's such a ridiculous concession that you're extracting there for pure domestic favorability purposes, in exchange for like basically recognizing that Russia has, to use a Trumpian term, Russia is holding all the cards, right?
No, they absolutely are. And I think that Trump gets that. Yeah.
And considering that we don't know the exact outlines of whatever this like proposal, this negotiation that's supposed to take place, the trilat, as Trump likes to call it, we don't considering like what we do know about some of the basic outlines and the fact that Ukraine and European leaders were seemingly very happy, and I don't know if they were faking it or if they were genuinely happy about the outcome so far. It feels as though there will still continue some kind of like insurgency initiative and weapons transfers that continue $100 billion specifically. I'm just not so certain as to why Russia would be on board with that. So it's not really going to look like a ceasefire at all, it seems. Well, they're just going to kind of call it a ceasefire, I guess, for domestic purposes.
Dude, I think you're totally right. I think we're heading towards that Kashmir-like situation where Ukraine is essentially a pawn for both the quote-unquote West, but the United States and the Western European powers especially, and Russia for domestic political reasons. And of course, the tragedy is that all the Americans who are just saying that fund Ukraine, don't negotiate in 2022 and 2023 are still going to all maintain their positions within the foreign policy establishment and within the media. I mean, to me, Ukraine just underlines a total lack of accountability for the commenters and makers of U.S. foreign policy. That's really disgusting. I mean, you see it going back to the Iraq War with people who advocated Iraq to still be in powerful positions. And the same thing is happening with Ukraine. We just live in a society without any fucking accountability whatsoever. And that the people, the warmongers who keep on making terrible choices that backfire immediately suffer no professional or personal consequences. It's you and I who are lambasted by the Russian government, not the people who should actually be.
Yeah. So moving on from Ukraine, because actually, last thing on Ukraine before we get into Israel. Was my analysis of the situation is that like the major power player here is still very much China outside of the United States of America and the entire Western enterprise. You have this guy, you have this ginormous manufacturing base for the entire globe, basically propping up, at least, or economically helping, and even in some instances maybe militarily helping Russia continue being able to do this. And the way that I try to explain this to my audience, which is primarily comprised of Westerners, is like a lot of the rest of the world that has been outside of the periphery of the West, the global South, see Russia as the enemy of my enemy is my friend. They see America and American dominance and Western imperialism as like a plague that has dominated their entire existence and their histories, and humiliated them at times, even so that they see Russia as the tip of the spear, like the one country that's like crazy enough to militarily strike a blow at the Western Empire. Meanwhile, of course, ironically enough, Ukrainians are dying in the process, and they are the ones who suffer the most out of these decisions that like two larger powers are making here. Do you feel like there is like the most just solution to the best managed resolution to this process would be to bring China to the table as well, and to have a negotiations process where like China is also involved and offer more favorable deals to China, instead of like continuing to adopt an even more hawkish attitude towards China, both economically and also trying to engage China militarily as well.
You're exactly right. I think one of the most damaging fantasies of U.S. foreign policy today is the idea that the United States will be able to remain a dominant power in East Asia. So anything that is going to bring China to the table as a major stakeholder in whatever world order that is going to emerge after U.S. hegemony is recognized to have totally declined is going to be important. Anything that brings American leaders together with Chinese leaders in a way in which the Americans recognize that they are the power in decline, and that they're not going to be able to remain, they're not quite regionally hegemonic any longer, but regionally powerful in Asia, in East Asia, is going to be a positive thing. And that's one of my biggest worries about U.S. foreign policy going into the future, is that the people who get recruited into both Democratic and Republican administrations, you basically can't really occupy an important position in either party if you don't think that the United States should remain forever dominant in East Southeast Asia. Even someone like John Mersheimer, who has been correct about Ukraine, thinks that the United States should confront China and that it's really important for the United States, which is ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. If you embrace the science of historical materialism and you just look at the material reality on the ground, there's just no way that's going to happen. What I'm worried about is that the United States is just going to actually cut and run one day, that China will do something super dramatic, whether it's an invasion of Taiwan or not, something else dramatic. US leaders will have done nothing to plan for this. They're going to recognize it's not worth fighting a nuclear World War III over an issue that's of tangential, ultimately, interest to the United States' physical security, and they're just going to leave the region, thereby leaving allies and partners totally in the lurch. When what should happen is this should be like basically a years-long process of preparing to leave the region in a meaningful and responsible way. But I don't think that there's any hope of that happening, because Americans are infected with a Protestant messianism that makes them identify the interests of the United States as being the interests of the world. So it's pretty grim. I mean, it's a pretty grim moment, even though the facts on the ground are so obvious.
There's like a dual-headed snake here as well, because like as domestic conditions worsen, like as material conditions worsen for the average American or the average Westerner, there's a lot less interest in feeling a sense of patriotism as well. On the one hand, you have more reactionary forces that grow out of the anger and resentment born out of the economic instability, the volatility, and a lot of hatred for the other, tribalist attitudes, white nativist immigration policies, and growing fascism. But I don't think the large swaths of Western society are as on board with like going to war with a larger power when they feel as though there's nothing to really fight for. It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go and die in a heated battle between America and China, so that or maybe survive so that I can come back to continue paying rent to my landlord. Like that's
Right.
that's not a life worth living, or that's certainly not a life worth fighting for, specifically fighting to death. So I think that is also somewhat crippling America's position around the global stage as well. And I guess the most reasonable outcome here, after all of America's dominance around the world, I think, is like maybe scaling back in a way that's not dissimilar to the British Empire blowing a 13 colony lead and just like slowly becoming just an island full of weird reactionaries that do finance and is like and allow foreign capital to like purchase whatever they want over there so they can enter like the European markets.
Yeah, and to some degree, the sort of skepticism of going abroad is actually much more deeply felt, is a much more deep tradition in U.S. history than most people would expect, because like you and I grew up in an era of American hyperpower. People older than us, for the most part, grew up in the era of the Cold War, when the United States was super involved in international affairs. You took over a lot of those British bases, actually. FDR made a deal with the United Kingdom that during World War II, he would give them Lend-Lease aid in exchange for basically taking over the British bases. So to some degree, the U.S. just like stepped in for the United Kingdom. But before that, it's George Washington who warns against foreign entanglements. There's a real skepticism of leaving the Western Hemisphere for the first 175 years of American history. Now, it was never isolationist because, as you know, the United States, first you get westward expansion, the genocide of indigenous peoples, you get the total domination of Latin America, Central America, and the Caribbean in very brutal ways. And even during the War of 1898, you get the seizure of the Philippines and Guam and Puerto Rico as colonies, and the United States totally dominates Cuba. So it's not 100%, but something did change in 1945 when the United States really went global in a way that it never had before, and people were actually really against, but is normal to us. So to some degree, I think we're returning to the historical mean in the next 10, 20 years. It's just going to be difficult because we have this gerontocracy ruling us, which really is really into American global empire, even though it's done so many bad things for the world, really responsible for the deaths of millions upon millions of people. It's one should just, when you're talking about the global South, I mean, just look at the numbers. Millions of people died as a direct result of American actions in the last 75 years. So it's not a surprise that they would, two cheers for Russia when it's combating what is perceived as an American war.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about another.
Now into the fun topic.
Yeah,
Israel.
now let's talk about another incident that's being billed as a war, but it's actually something beyond a genocide, Israel's genocide of the Palestinian population. Israel has intensified its push to Gaza City, specifically trying to turn Gaza City into rubble, as it has done in Rafah and many other parts. The UN, as of last night, declared famine in North Gaza. Hold on, sorry, doors open. I apologize. I have the delivery coming in. I wanted to play a quick video from. I wanted to play a quick video for both of us to look at. UN accuses Israel of using hunger as a weapon as famine is declared in Gaza City.
Across Gaza, there is hunger, and now that suffering has a new name, famine. A United Nations-backed report says it has taken hold in parts of the Gaza Strip. 500,000 people are facing catastrophic shortages of food, with the crisis deepening by the day. And the United Nations blames Israel, saying it has blocked aid and used hunger as a weapon.
It is a famine that we could have prevented if we had been allowed. Yet food stacks up at borders because of systematic obstruction by Israel. It is a famine within a few hundred meters of food in a fertile land.
Near Gaza City, food is handed out at soup kitchens. These are meagre amounts that are supposed to sustain a family. The mortality rate is horrendous. Every day, of 10,000 people, 2 will die because of hunger. When aid does come, there's a scramble of people running towards pallets dropped from planes or fighting to get on the back of lorries to grab a bag of flour. This man is 75 years old. He is painfully thin.
Before the war, I weighed around 70 kilos. Now, because of malnutrition, my weight has dropped to just 40. I suffered both a stroke and a heart attack. They had to put in a stent to help me recover. I thank God my organs are still functioning.
The Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, dismissed the report as an outright lie and said the problems in Gaza are caused by Hamas. For many Israelis, there is limited sympathy for Gaza.
Look at that. Make Gaza Jewish again.
It's just our country's directly responsible for this. It's just horrible to even comprehend. Yeah.
Yeah. So this has had, this has had, as someone who has been an advocate for Palestinian emancipation for my entire professional media career for the past decade plus, I have never seen such a dramatic attitude shift against Israel. Even in places like the United States of America, where like our numbers are far worse in terms of favorability and unfavorability towards Israel in particular than like other countries, even other Western nations. But even here, obviously, the overwhelming majority recognize what Israel is doing as wrong. And even a majority of the population now also see the truth that Israel is doing a genocide. Why do you think America has attached itself to the hip with this very clearly suicidal, fascist, genocidal state?
There's several different reasons. So I think partially it goes back to gerontocracy, that a lot of the party leaders and a lot of the people who are in positions to make decisions were politicized and basically professionalized in an era where to go against Israel was to risk your political career flat out. From the 1970s onward, the power of the Israel lobby when you're talking about the Democratic Party, the power of the Christian Zionist lobby when you're talking about the Republican Party made it very difficult for any politician to make a career in this country if they were to go against Israel. And oftentimes, as sad as it is, a lot of U.S. foreign policy is directly linked to domestic politics. So I think that's really going on. That's really crucial here. I think there's also larger geostrategic reasons. First, there's racialized reasons. The notion that Israel is sort of a white redoubt in an era, in a region of brown barbarism is actually really important and is deeply held in American foreign policy, which has been racist for a long time and continues to be racist going forward. So that's that's an ideological reason. There's also the geostrategic reason, which I think Israel is viewed as a bastion of the American empire, again, in the Middle East. And this is most important vis-a-vis Iran, which the United States has been basically attacking since 1979 because we installed the brutal Shah after we overthrew Mossadegh in 1953. And was a Cold War fought through proxies, but since Trump attacked Iran, now a hot war. And so there's this geostrategic idea that Israel provides a base for the United States to be in the region in a more powerful way than even literal bases in Saudi or Egypt or wherever the case may be. And so I think those are primarily the reasons why it seems like the American political elite, until incredibly recently, tied itself so closely to Israel. Beyond that, before the era of social media, you didn't see it. You didn't see it to the same degree that you see it now, what apartheid in the West Bank looks like, or what now genocide in Gaza looks like. You didn't see it to the degree that you do now. And I think that's a genuine major cause. If you're scrolling Twitter and you just see murdered children, starving people over and over again, you begin asking yourself, what type of country is doing this? What type of country supports another country doing this? And I think that Netanyahu, just to take a step back, has really overplayed his hand, because I do think there's a gigantic emergent generational divide between basically people under 45 and people over 45 when it comes to Israel. And I do think going forward, you're going to see less and less support for basically allowing Israel to do whatever they want. The problem, the tragedy of it, though, is I think that Israel might very well succeed in this Likud project, this Jabotinsky project, to create greater Israel. And by the time there's this shift in American politics, and like the famous book says, everybody is now against this, everybody will one day always be against this, it'll be too late. And so this is really a tragic situation in the original meaning of the term.
Absolutely. Do you feel as though there is Chris Hedges has this mindset that it's and I've in our interviews he brought this up as well, where he feels like it's completely gone, that there is no solution here beyond like Israel is going to complete its genocidal project here, and America is going to try and actively provide political cover as it's done so far. And it will create a lot of animosity against the American government and against the Western governments as well. And it's clear to me, at least, that like some European leaders who still try to maintain the optics of like being bastions of liberal democracy and defenders of like international human rights are trying to at least offer some kind of exit ramp, a pressure valve release by saying we're going to recognize the state of Palestine and things of that nature. Whereas America is, especially under the leadership of Donald Trump, not even choosing to offer any sort of olive branch to those who see the horrifying realities of Israel's genocide and demand stopping said horrifying realities. Do you feel like this is where we're headed towards, that it's going to? Or is there any sort of counter messaging operation or any sort of like initiative movement that people could take that could potentially set back Israel's genocidal ambition in Gaza?
I mean, I think, first of all, optimism of the will, but I think with this one, pessimism of the intellect, because I think it's very difficult to see how there would be a transformation in U.S. foreign policy toward Israel. But I mean, obviously this is a terrible situation, but if one thing positive could come out of it, I think people could really appreciate the undemocratic nature of U.S. foreign policy and the degree to which ordinary Americans have almost no say over what their country does abroad. And I just want to stick on that for a second, because this was a conscious choice made in the late 1940s when the United States was creating its modern state to create institutions like the National Security Council, like the Central Intelligence Agency, and eventually the Department of Defense, which were constantly separated not only from public opinion, but from congressional opinion. So you can have a moment, even within the Democratic Party, when most Democrats are against whatever the United States, not whatever, the United States allowing Israel to do whatever it wants. Most people could be against that, and it doesn't matter, because we don't in a lot of issue areas, we do not live in a democracy.
Yeah.
And I think people really need to understand that, because understanding that is the first step toward actually changing it, to creating the type of world where we could say, no, we're not going to support genocide. We're not going to support apartheid,
Yeah.
and actually having policymakers listen, because we don't live in a democracy, not in a real democracy. And hopefully this will help people realize that. That's the only positive benefit, because right now I don't see how things could change otherwise.
Yeah.
I don't think protests are enough. I don't think letter writing campaigns are enough. And it just is really a terrible and tragic situation. That doesn't even do justice to it. It's beyond that. It is beyond that.
Americans have been kept in the dark about American foreign policy by design. At least that's my assessment of the situation. Deliberately kept in the dark, because if they were to recognize the violent nature of American dominance, especially in the global South, that contributes in very meaningful ways into them getting like $5 t-shirts at Forever 21 or whatever, some people would probably be understandably angry towards it, and maybe others would actually land on the side of permanent warfare as a constant state. But because of that, there is somewhat of an opportunity here, because many Americans, while benefiting from being a part of the labor aristocracy or being in the imperial core, still very much have this weird opinion where they're anti-war. They fancy themselves to be anti-war. Donald Trump took advantage of that when he was running against the more cold and calculated and perhaps more serious tone that Kamala Harris took when she said she wants a more lethal military. She's going to have the most lethal military and whatnot. And I do agree with you as far as like this being an issue that definitely wakes up a lot of people to how little say they have in the process of this quote unquote democracy, especially in liberal capitalist states. I feel as though specifically with Israel, like for people that think this is just foreign policy, what is that supposed to do with me? Oh, it's just like Muslims and Jews. They've been fighting, ahistorical shit that they say, like they've been fighting for decades or centuries, thousands of years. It's wrong. I think the lack of democracy is ever present in domestic agendas as well, that many people have somehow deluded themselves under our duopoly into thinking like, no, there's marginal improvements that one party can make over the other. But when it comes down to universal things like Medicare for all, clearly something that like the overwhelming majority of Americans want and demand, they're not getting it. Something's got to change.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the many reasons that people feel a little nuts today, because we're way more politicized as a culture than we ever were. People talk more about politics in the 2020s than they did in the 1980s and the 1990s. But as we talk more and more about politics, we have less and less ability to affect policy. So you get this strange situation where everyone's politically motivated, but there's no actual avenue for genuine policy change. And it leads to a type of corroded society where everyone kind of feels insane all the time, because we talk about this all the time, but nothing ever changes. And so the positive thing of that is that we could recognize, you're totally right. Americans don't decide the macro economy of this country, what this country invests in, the various incentives it gives to companies, the fact that it gives SpaceX all these government contracts, which are built on NASA, i.e. government funded research and things like that. We have absolutely no say in that. And the story of the United States over the course of the 20th century is a story of de-democratization. Ironically, as the franchise expanded, first to women in the 20s, and then to all Black Americans in the 1960s and beyond. Ironically, as the vote expanded, democracy went away. And I don't think those two are not related. As more and more people were given the vote, the actual ability to change things was ironically reduced. And this is the fundamental tension of what it means to be an American interested in politics in 2020. And we need to change 2025. And we need to change it, because if we don't, we're just going to be getting more Israels. We're just going to be getting more landlords, higher inflation. Everything is more difficult. No one could afford rent. No one could afford a house. And even if we're able to consume cheap calories and cheap pornography, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And we need to change it.
Yeah. And obviously the treat economy only takes you so far when everything else is on fire at all times. And if one party is recognizing that frustration that people experience and then redirecting it back to like vulnerable targets that have historically been very effective at undermining, like, you know, Nazis in like fascists in Nazi Germany, and prioritizing Jews in society as like the primary enemy, the arch villains, and socialism or Jewish Bolshevism as like the thing that was disrupting the very fabric that was holding the Volk-backed German society together. The right, the reactionary politicians in our day and age are doing a very similar thing, if not damn near identical. And this time they're doing it in the direction of immigrants. The process, even
Precisely.
the legal process that they utilize, is actually not dissimilar, if not completely identical to what Nazi Germany did as well. The denaturalization process of like creating a permanent state of like statesless people that you can just dominate and either use as slave labor, or if it's opportune for your propaganda purposes, use them as like the arch villains that are responsible for all of the economic hardships that you're experiencing. And so some people do actually abide by that. Some people do go along with this like comfortable narrative that it's not the impossible to change systems that are actually designed to dominate the overwhelming majority of workers living in American society, but instead it's actually the migrants, or it's the trans people, or it's people that are just like don't understand the living conditions of, even if they are completely aligned on class interests. I guess one last question that I have, because you want to talk about China. Having said all of that, do you...
Hassan, can I just say something really quickly?
Go ahead.
Just two things happened in March 2003. The U.S. invaded Iraq and ICE was founded. Those things go together. And I think it's just very clear that they rely on each other. Sorry, please.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. Foreign policy always plays an incredibly important role in domestic policy and the lives of Americans. At its most base, like every dollar spent on a rocket is a dollar that could go back to American infrastructure, a dollar that could go back to our education, a dollar that can go back to building roads and a robust infrastructure that we could rely on. And yet we don't treat it as such. I guess the other side, now that we talked about the Republicans before we get to China, the other side, on the liberal side, there's this delusion that necessitates them like treating the population as like silly and childish, that makes it seem like their anger and resentment and the economic hardships that they're facing are actually totally ridiculous. So if one side is not actively channeling the frustration towards more productive avenues, because if this was a true left flank, if this was a true left party, they would say it's the millionaires and billionaires, it's the corporate oligarchs that have designed society in this way. But they're not doing that because they're also funded by the same corporate benefactors. They don't do that. But the other side at least like recognizes the frustration, Republicans, and then redirects it to vulnerable populations, marginalized populations. And then ultimately you have this growing fascist movement in the country.
I think that's totally right. And I think that indicates nothing more than the crisis of liberalism, which the Democratic Party represents. One of liberalism's historical strengths is that it was able to incorporate criticism. That's what FDR was. FDR was essentially a liberal who incorporated the social democratic criticism. To some degree, that's what Ronald Reagan was. Ronald Reagan was a liberal who incorporated the criticism of the stagnation of the Fordist economy at the mid-century. What's interesting about liberals today is that they can't even brook criticism. I remember, I'll never forget it. After Trump won in 2016, the New Yorker ran a cartoon, which was like a guy standing up on the plane being like, I know better than the pilot, let me fly the plane, which was just a total dismissal of why anyone would be radicalized to the degree to vote for such an anti-systemic candidate like Donald Trump. They don't take it seriously. And that's due, like you said, because they're funded by the same people. But there's also this sort of like oligarchization process, meritocracy thing, where the Democratic Party is essentially staffed by people who went to the Ivy League institutions and associated institutions, people who are so separate from what ordinary Americans understand that the party literally cannot comprehend how an ordinary person lives. So
Yeah.
you need a total transformation of the party. The party is a cancerous rot right now.
Yeah, there's a complete infantilization of like the large majorities of the population, and I mean, I understand like to a certain degree that people are not making educated decisions when they're voting, but that's partially born out of the fact that we do have this duopoly that is actually uniparty on a lot of the issues that matter.
The left and right sides of capital.
But
famously.
even then, like the dumbest person on the planet still understands when they are experiencing harm. So there is this like directionless anger that people have, and you can either, like I always say, direct it at those who are causing you harm, or direct it at those who are marginalized and can be easily cast aside as like villains in society when they're not playing a role, not playing that role at all. As a matter of fact, when they're utterly powerless.
I mean, you just saw it very quickly with the fact that they tried to tell you that Biden wasn't in mental decline. That's just a sign of disrespect to people. Don't believe your lying eyes.
Yeah, no, exactly. But let's talk a little bit about China as well before I let you go, because thank you for being on here for an hour. This is a wonderful conversation. What do you think about China's rise in this past decade, in the past 2 decades especially, and its role as a power player in the global marketplace?
To some degree, it's a return to normalcy. If you look at the grand sweep of international relations, China was always a major player. And the strange thing was that it wasn't a major player for a couple of hundred years due to various contingent historical circumstances. It's unique that basically, since 1492, that the West, or more accurately, the global North, and even more accurately, the North Atlantic world wound up being dominant. That's kind of a historical outlier when you're looking at the last 5,000 or so years of history. So to some degree, it's a return to normal. I mean, the big question with China is it genuinely trying to move toward a more communist world? Or after Deng, did they just decide that the only way that you could actually interact in the world is as another major power, and that you could take care of your country, you could develop your country, you could try to control your region and push it in a particular direction, but the sort of dream of a universalistic communism is just, the world just isn't ready for that. And to me, that's the big question of China. Is China just a state capitalist society, or is it a state capitalist society that is trying to foster a transition to something like a more equal communism? And I think it's an open question right now. It seems more state capitalist, but I hope that I'm wrong with that. When it comes to international relations, it's just going to dominate East Asia. That is the reality of the situation. And like I've said a couple times, the United States needs to accommodate itself to that reality. It shouldn't fight World War III over things that are of tangential interest to this country, even if in an ideal world, Taiwan or Hong Kong or what have you, the people there would be able to determine their own form of government. That's the world we want, with that genuine democracy. But in the world that it actually exists, the United States shouldn't fight World War III over it. And I worry that American officials don't recognize that, and they really need to.
Yeah, I think we're definitely in agreement that like one of the major issues that's already unfolded and will continue to become even larger, more consequential problems is like America's inability to recognize that it no longer has the same amount of power around the globe. And empires don't die quietly. They go out. They don't go out in a fizzle. It's a long and very violent process usually. And I think America is going to become increasingly more belligerent, and not in the ways that, I mean, America's always been belligerent, but at least like belligerent in a way where they can still like maintain the optics of stability as the world police. But now, especially in cases like with Russian retaliation in some ways, or Russian expansion interests, and America's inability to address those things militarily is creating this unique predicament where there's just a continuation of conflict, which might actually help in the interim, in the short term, for corporate super profits. And you see this with like Anduril and Palantir and all of these like Silicon Valley tech companies now entering the military industrial complex in more meaningful ways than they ever did before, because they want a piece of that that last remaining pie, I guess. But all of that leads to more militarism, and all that leads to more bloodshed. And I don't know. I feel it just seems like if you're not under the protective banner of like nuclear arms, if you're not under like a nuclear security treaty, you're just going to look like Ukraine. There's going to be more and more Ukraines all around the world.
I mean, look at Kim Jong-un versus Gaddafi, right? And this is the classic instance, right? One of them has nuclear weapons, one of them didn't. And this is one of the things that I think you might see happen in Iran. I think it wouldn't be a surprise if many Iranian leaders decide that they need to go full on for a nuclear program, particularly after Trump bombed them and Israel bombed them. This was an argument made by a political scientist named Kenneth Waltz maybe in early 2010s, but he essentially said the most stable world would be one in which there was actually nuclear proliferation, because it would prevent the type of foreign adventurism that you saw in Afghanistan and Iraq and in Libya or Vietnam or Korea or what have you. And I don't think that argument is absolutely absurd. I think a lot of history demonstrates that, but that's not a good thing, because nuclear weapons or a nuclear war could actually destroy humanity in a genuine way. And it's difficult for us to feel that because it's been so long since one was dropped in war, but it could really destroy humanity, not necessarily from annihilation, but from engendering a global famine. These are real things that could really happen. And so this is why the left needs to win and push the state in a good direction.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, last question about China.
Sure.
In terms of your calculations about whether China is honestly a transitional socialist state that wants to build global communism, or simply self-interested and maybe hyper pragmatic, possibly because of their analysis of what they consider that the USSR did wrong, and their focus is becoming an irreplaceable world power by trade. And soft power initiatives rather than any sort of like military dominance. With respect to Israel, China is still very much the second largest trading partner of Israel. This is, Israel relies on Chinese commerce. Do you feel like they could take a more active stance against Israel beyond writing sternly worded letters every few weeks about how angry they are about Israel's genocide?
Oh, of course they could. The question is, why aren't they? And that, I think, leads to more pushing into China viewing itself as a more quote unquote pragmatic, realist power when it comes to international relations. It does not seem to me that China envisions itself as the exporter of global revolution that Mao might have imagined in the 50s and the 60s. And I think its policy vis-a-vis Israel suggests that when it comes to the world stage, at least in the 2020s, it's going to act like a pragmatic, realist power and try to basically protect itself and pursue what it perceives as its own national military and security and economic interests. And Israel provides a salient example of that. I think it's the exact right way to view it, like you said.
They don't even take advantage of potential like-minded, like ideologically aligned militia movements in their own backyard. If they wanted to cause like some semblance of instability or even like an American-style military coup, they could use the Philippine Maoist movement, and yet they've actively undermined the Maoist movement in the Philippines and worked with an American-backed dictatorship against the Maoist movement. So like I feel like they're pragmatic to a fault in some instances, but then again, who am I? I'm just some random dickhead living in the United States of America. I'm not Xi Jinping, Maybe he knows something I don't.
I mean, very similar to Stalin, right? Right after World War II, Stalin didn't really support the Chinese Revolution. Went back and forth on the Greek communists. So I think basically my overall macro take is that since the 30s, no communist country has really imagined itself as the exporter of global revolution. I think this is when I joke, half joke, that all was lost in 1914 when the working classes of Europe fought each other, because that shouldn't have happened. And the state was immature enough when the working class could have actually taken it over in a meaningful way. But that's a conversation for another time. But it does not seem like that they imagine themselves
the
as
German Revolution could have dramatically altered the trajectory of humanity.
It was supposed to happen there, man. It was
Yeah.
not supposed to happen in Russia. It was supposed to happen in Germany.
Yeah. All right. Well, Daniel Bessner, thank you so much for coming on the broadcast. This was enlightening. This was an incredible conversation. I hope to have you on again. Is there anything you want to plug before I let you go?
Yeah, please, everyone, check out my podcast, American Prestige, at AmericanPrestigePod.com. We've got a really good episode this week with Glenn Lowry, and we've got one with Rashid Khalidi coming out on Tuesday. And this Sunday, we're talking about Ukraine. So if you like foreign affairs, please check out American Prestige. Again, American Prestige Pod. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, just D Bessner is my Twitter name. And Hassan, I just want to say thanks for doing all this good work, man. Really appreciate it. You're fighting the good fight, and thanks again for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Bye.
Bye.
All right, that was Daniel Bessner of American Prestige. Great convo. You guys, we are very fortunate. I'm very fortunate to be able to have these sorts of conversations with people who are very well educated on the history of global affairs and just in general. Fuck, I literally just missed it. Lamau. Yeah. You should get Danny and Derek on at the same time. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that in the future as well. Building on Dan's point about China, was this your first time ever interacting with him? No, we've hung out at Felix's birthday like many years ago. And ironically, our hostility of addressing climate change led to us gutting our electrical production capacity, which will harm us versus China. Ah, well, onward. Mortaza Hussein says, it seems like the U.S. is going to treat competition with China the same way as climate change. Recognize it's a big deal and start to shuffle some things around. But once the scale of the structural changes required start to dawn, just ignore it and continue on as usual. Yeah. You'll look at that and go, look, we're seeing it, we're listening, we're learning. It's real. Climate change is real. We're not going to do anything about it. Especially one that like undermines the profit motive of the fossil fuel giants. Yeah. You got to get Seth Harp on. I know. I will. All right. Chat behaved very well. Yeah. Chat was good. Good job, chatters. As a treat, we're going to continue talking about man-made horrors beyond comprehension. Before we get to the census in a little bit. Okay.
This sign has just gone up in Jerusalem's Old City.
You lived in Gaza? Oh, you were
And
there?
here we meet a father and daughter who lived in an Israeli settlement inside Gaza until it was closed 20 years ago. They both think Gazans should be evicted and that Israel should take over the territory.
Landlord behavior is crazy.
If someone was trying to kill your wife
Miss Taylor, thank you for the 25. Get the subs.
kidnap your child from the home, was thinking about if we're hungry or not.
Once again, everything that a pro-Israel person in Israel says can be spoken about Israel tenfold in retaliation to Israel. Like, oh, what about kidnapping your wife and killing your child? How can you live with them? It's like, okay, like that is an understandable position from the perspective of the average Palestinian. And even then, they don't have that position for the most part. So the very fact that these people do not realize that they are the ones doing this in perpetuity, especially in the process of a genocide that is going on that everyone can fucking see and feel, implies that the only reason why there is no just solution to this is because Israel has not incurred significant penalties in the process. If Israel incurred significant penalties in the process, they would have to reconsider their belligerent military occupation and their militant position, their constant escalation. Okay? The reason why Israel does not ever withstand significant penalties is because America, the large superpower, the global hegemonic superpower, at least for the last, 40 years, is allowing Israel to continue behaving in this way with zero accountability, with unlimited weapons. It's completely unacceptable.
Others, less strident, but still dubious that Israel has caused a famine.
I think Israel cares. I think Israelis in general care. And I don't find any other country that's fighting a war and trying to help them at the same time, the people.
No, a big part of the anger and resentment is that Israel is not even abiding by the basics of warfare, like the rules that were created. It is ridiculous. Like that statement in and of itself basically captures the Nazi sentiment behind Israel's genocidal ambition, like the Israeli state's genocidal ambition. You're not fighting a war with everyone. Okay, first of all, you're not fighting a war at all. You're doing a genocide. He knows that. He can't say the word. So he's like, but we're giving them food while we're fighting a war. It's like, you're talking about children. You're talking about women and children. You're talking about civilians. Like, of course, you are supposed to not treat this as an aberration that needs to be excised forcibly, but instead just local occupants of this land that deserve to live free of Israeli cruelty and Israeli violence. It's so strange that people don't see this reality when Israelis themselves are the first to admit it.
The IPC report says death, starvation and deprivation are evident on the streets of Gaza. But on the outskirts of Gaza City, the Israeli military is slowly massing forces, ready to encircle this cursed place. If a ceasefire is not agreed, then this city of starving people will be attacked once more. Adam Parsons, Sky News, Jerusalem.
Please read the IPC report, cover to cover. Read it in sorrow and in anger, not as words and numbers, but as names and lives. Be in no doubt that this is irrefutable testimony. It is a famine, the Gaza famine. It is a famine that we could have prevented. It is a famine that hits the most vulnerable first, each with a name, each with a story, that strips people of dignity before it strips them of life, that forces a parent to choose which child to feed, that forces people to risk their lives to seek food. It is a famine that we repeatedly warned of, but that the international media has not been allowed in to cover, bear witness. It is a famine in 2025, a 21st century famine, watched over by drones and the most...
Who's causing this famine? No, they're saying it's Israel. I feel like they're... Am I wrong? Am I misunderstanding? Am I being too hopeful? I feel like they are saying Israel is doing this. Like, they're not... Normally, these guys, they're careful. They're perhaps a little too careful with their language in a way that, like, actually offers protective cover to the Israeli state. No, they're saying it. They're saying Israel is doing this. He said it in the beginning, and I believe he'll say it once again in this conversation. He is saying that Israel is starving the population of Gaza. And it took far too long for them to... Actually, I won't even say that it took the UN far too long, but like... this is the expansive permission structure. This is when the United Nations is actively saying Israel's doing a genocide. Israel's doing a fucking man-made famine. It is impossible for Israel defenders in the West to just continue being like, oh, this is anti-Semitism. UN is Hamas. And all of that will inevitably cause even more pressure to bubble up. That requires, that creates an environment that requires, that demands some kind of change in the positive direction.
Advanced military technology in history. It is a famine openly promoted by some Israeli leaders as a weapon of war. It is a famine on all of our watch. Everyone owns this. The Gaza famine is the world's famine. It is a famine that asks, but what did you do? A famine that will and must haunt us all. It is a predictable and a preventable famine. A famine caused by cruelty, justified by revenge, enabled by indifference, and sustained by...
No, it's not a famine, though. Famines are natural occurrences. No, they're saying it's a man-made famine, dude. Come on. Okay. They are saying this is a man-made famine. It is forced starvation that Israel has designed. They're saying it, okay? The only other thing that they're not saying is that, or at least saying out loud as of this point, and I don't think they ever will, is that America is doing it. Make no mistake, they have no issue with other members of the Security Council when they behave in fucked up ways. They call them out. Russia gets called out. China gets called out. America seemingly doesn't get called out. America is the major responsible party. When he says complicity, he's not actually defining who is complicit. He says, oh, we're all complicit. And to a certain degree, that's true. We have some semblance of culpability here. But if you look at the parties that are involved directly, it's Israel, number one, of course, but America is a very powerful number two, so much so that maybe America is number one and Israel's number two.
Complicity. It is a famine that must spur the world to more urgent action, that must shame the world to do better. It is a famine that therefore also asks, and what now will you do? My ask, my plea, my demand to Prime Minister Netanyahu and anyone who can reach him: enough. Ceasefire.
This is Loki, the UN doing the "if I was your mother" to Vladimir Putin. Remember that tweet, that video? Vladimir Putin, if I was your mother, I'd embrace you. Like, yeah, dude, you're gonna please reach out to Benjamin Netanyahu. He can't hear the cries of starving children. No, dude, he goes to sleep with that playing on repeat. Okay. That's not, he knows, he loves it. He's fucking fantasizing about more of it.
The crossings, north and south, all of them. Let us get food and other supplies in, unimpeded and at the massive scale required. End the retribution. It is too late for far too many, but not for everyone in Gaza. Enough. For humanity's sake, let us in. Thank you.
Also, speaking of mechanisms of control, TikTok updated its guidelines 15 days after hiring a former IDF soldier and proud Zionist to fight anti-Semitism, calling the IDF terrorist now violates community guidelines, even though it's literally real. That is true. That is exactly what it is. They also changed all racial supremacy as hate speech to only white supremacy, they say. I don't know how hard they're going to go after that. I don't know how valid that is. But some changes are obviously going to be implemented. That's the reason why they got like an anti-Semitism czar. So it's not surprising at all. Another fat L for China there. Yeah, TikTok is definitely trying to tweak the algorithm in a way where it's that it suits the American State Department so that they just can still keep selling you unlimited labubus. Okay. Here is a friend of the show, Zach Foster, and talking about in under 1 minute how he went from how he became an anti-Zionist. Okay, I've had Zachary Foster on before. He is a historian of Palestine, has a PhD from Princeton, specifically on the history of Palestine. I believe Zach Foster himself is Jewish, and he was one of the early academics I had on to speak convincingly on this issue. He's a fantastic resource for understanding the history of Palestinian resistance, even the evolution of Hamas as a group that turned into militancy. Let's hear what he had us to say here.
And then I spent a summer 2006 in the Balkans with a group of half Jews, half Palestinians, and I learned that the Palestinians I met, mostly Palestinian Americans, who have a strong connection to Palestine, whose parents and grandparents are from Palestine, who want to return to Palestine. They can't because they're of the incorrect religion. They're not Jewish, so they can't go, even though their parents and grandparents are from there. Whereas me, an American Jew, who may or may not speak a word of Hebrew, who may or may not have any ties whatsoever to the country, who may or may not be able to even identify where it is on a map, I have a quote-unquote birthright to go move there, claim citizenship, get benefits, free language instruction from the Israeli government. Does that make any sense to you?
I'm trying to post complimentary TikToks of you. It keeps getting flagged for violent extremism. Do you know why this might be happening? I think I'm my days in TikTok are they're not over necessarily, but let's just say I have a lot of trolls obviously that are like actively spamming. But let's just say that it's not as democratic as a process any longer. Most of my TikToks that normally would bang, absolutely, and there's uncertainty there. Barely make it past like 100K views now. Is pretty wild. TikTok algo is busted for sure. not exactly seeing me as a very favorable, my ideology or my worldview as a favorable one. It is what it is. You know, nevertheless, we keep pushing. But yeah, if you're marked as like a pro Palestine account, I feel like if they just kind of tweak the algo a little bit and you go to TikTok jail. We obviously have the Ghislaine Maxwell thing off topic, but new info. The rats have jumped ship. He privately admitted to keeping alleged CSAM and police are involved now. Yeah, this is why I guess people were like, you have to watch the Willie Mack Show's new video. One of Stephen Bonnell, aka Destiny's previous supporters and collaborators, just reported to the police for allegedly keeping CSAM on his computer and admitting to it.
It's because he continued to write. I didn't know this until way later, but the videos she recorded with other guys, the file names are like screen recording, blah, blah, blah. And then he shows me a screenshot of the top of a video clip and says, her boyfriend was recording these on Skype calls. That's absolutely insane to think about him doing all of this if she was 17. Well, this is insane to me because he's saying Rose's boyfriend recorded CP while sending me a screenshot of the alleged CP. So I asked to confirm if he just did that. If you were sending me this, I'm guessing you still have that video. Destiny replies, depends on why you're asking. But yes, I created copies of all of our messages and everything when that court case started. Just to be clear, he's admitting to having alleged CP.
Why does this dude think that this is like a good defense? I mean, I don't think that Willie Slop Show actually gives a fuck about anything. I'll be honest with you. I think he's a mercenary, and I think he's just reading the room and realizing that this is a sinking ship that he must jump, because he was like actively defending and sweeping for him for Destiny for quite a while, even after like the initial accusations of the court cases took place. Like he was like kind of critical of him, but not really. He was critical of him in a way where it was like still in defense of him. He has utilized Destiny's community to make multiple fairly successful videos on people like myself and many other enemies of Destiny. He is definitely a fixture of that slop tuber community that we talk about. Like these guys literally looked at Israel's genocide of the Palestinian population and thought, this is a great opportunity for us to farm some drama clicks. And unfortunately, there are a lot of not very intelligent people who have taken their note from this, because they're just like kind of watching something that's easily digestible, and they go, oh, this is a bad person, we shouldn't listen to him. And now he is jumping ship. So it seems like the walls are closing in.
Court case started. Just to be clear, he's admitting to having alleged CP downloaded on his computer. He literally has the video open as I'm talking to him. I go, bruh, there's been allegations at least since my last video that she was underage, and you still have potential CP of her? He replies, I have an obligation to preserve relevant evidence, etc. So I created backups of all of the important / relevant conversations. He continues, I don't think I'm allowed to delete it, lol. I don't know if it counts as hiding / destroying evidence. And I reply, talk to a lawyer, that seems crazy to me. Who keeps this sort of stuff on their computer without 100% knowing if they're supposed to or not? Isn't that something you want to confirm? I continued, you just let me know you have CP videos saved to your computer. You knew it was alleged that she was underage. You still have them. Do you see how fucked this is? So now I've confirmed that this guy has child porn on his computer. In my 8 years of reaching out to people over allegations, I've never had anyone admit that to me. The last message he sent me was, 1, I don't even know 100% of her age was legitimately less than 18 when these were taken. So basically, he's not 100% sure if he has child porn on his computer. He's just 99% sure. Got it. 2, I'm pretty sure I have an obligation to preserve stuff related to my court case. I've talked about it with my lawyer already, specifically with regards to the Rose stuff. So he went from, I don't know if I could delete this, to my lawyer says it's totally fine to keep. I don't know the law, but the idea that his lawyer would tell him to hold on to CP for a civil case just doesn't seem likely to me. I don't know. LawTube can figure that out. 3, if something were to come out of this, I don't know if I'd want to wipe everything and not have something to turn over to the authorities. If hypothetically, whenever a political creator is about to give a hypothetical, you know you're about to hear some weird shit. If hypothetically her boyfriend or whatever was actually trafficking her or getting her to fuck other dudes on video for him, and if there was ever some kind of investigation into that, am I hurting the chance of looking into him by deleting all of this stuff? Oh, so now the reason he's keeping the CP.
Yeah, no, there's a justifiable reason for it. He actually has the utmost highest morals at all times. Wow, from the guy who has actively debated the ethics of ethical CP, ethical CSAM, comes an opportunity for him to have that in his hard drive. Interesting.
Is because of
Destiny be like, I'm a white hat pedophile. Actually, you don't understand.
a hypothetical criminal case that he is not pursuing at all. Okay, maybe these reasons are legally sound advice that came from his lawyer. Maybe he's lying and just saying anything to make it sound better to me. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I just know this guy's admitting to having CP in my DMs, 60 gigabytes according to him. Seriously.
Yeah. Destiny be like, excuse me, what if there was a nuke that was about to go off in New York City and the only way to stop it is to insert a USB with CSAM into my computer and watch it? What then? And then, of course, the intellectual titans cult of sycophants will literally look at that and go, that's an amazing argument. I never thought about it like that. Actually, you are right to do so. That's one of the most ridiculous aspects of this this entire situation, beyond the criminal element, beyond the fact that there are still people who are so deluded. If your entire fandom revolves around you making the best argument possible and ritualistically humiliating your interlocutors in the marketplace of ideas, and you can't even come up with a convincing counter narrative here, then what do you have? You have nothing that remains. A couple of the reasons why people still hold on to this idea that Destiny's a force for good, actually, even though he's just a little bit of a gooner, was because one, he is actively de-radicalizing people, right? He is so effective at de-radicalizing people. I've seen no evidence of this, okay? I've seen no evidence of this whatsoever, especially because he still holds a lot of reactionary perspectives. He just says, you can say the N-word as a white guy and shit on marginalized people all the time, except, you just have to vote Democrat while doing so. And not only that, but also he can't even fucking help his own son. If he was a better father to his own son wouldn't have turned into a fucking Nazi. So clearly he has failed on that front demonstrably. And the other idea that people love him is because he is this intellectual warlord, a giant that can best anyone in the marketplace of ideas, no matter how incredible their intellect might be, right? He can go toe to toe with intellectuals that are subject matter experts and still defeat them in the marketplace of ideas. That also was a fucking abject failure with the conversation that took place between him and obviously Norm Finkelstein, even though his cult still deluded themselves into believing that he didn't make a fool of himself in that process. Okay. But especially now, even if you're viewing this from the perspective of drama, okay, even if you're viewing this from the perspective of drama, the way that he has actually dealt with this criminal incident is so stupid. I brought up one of the examples yesterday. Okay. No, hey, big dog, but I really think that if you or any other debater would debate a lawyer, you would lose. Wait, what? Debate a lawyer? What? I don't know what you're even saying right now. I didn't say I'm going to debate a lawyer. What? I don't even know what you're referencing. But what I'm trying to say is, with respect to what Destiny's been trying to do in the last couple of days, as he's flailing around and trying to defend himself, he's gone back to his old tricks. Number one, what about Hassan? Okay, that's always the thing that has helped him. No matter how ridiculous, no matter how fucked up something he's saying is, he can always turn around and say, well, what about Hassan? Okay, well, that ripcord doesn't work here. Okay, it's clearly not working because this is a fucking criminal thing that he's doing. And that hasn't worked. So he has also started the process once again, or never really stopped the process of victim blaming, specifically going after Pixie, who is in a court case as a victim of the distribution of revenge porn. Okay, and he's turning around and attacking Pixie and anyone he can get his hands on, anyone he can belittle. But even in those counter arguments, even in those deflections, they're so silly. Those deflections are so unimaginably silly. He'll just be like, why does nobody care about the person who potentially filmed this CSAM? It's What the fuck do you mean? Why does nobody care about the person who filmed the CSAM? Like, nobody knows that person. You know that person. You have direct involvement with that person. You should be the one who cares. That's not an active deflection. What do you mean? Well, I'm just the recipient of CSAM as opposed to the person who procured it? Okay. Why the fuck do you think that's an argument that actually maintains your innocence? That just means there's another guy out there who's also fucking an awful piece of shit. That doesn't make any sense. You can't turn around and be like, well, Your Honor, I may have purchased it, but someone else made it. And from what I understand, the only reason why they figured out that this person that he was actually sending the revenge porn of others to in solicitation of CSAM and even actively trying to traffic this minor, okay, both are different crimes. That person was 17. And the reason why people figured out that that person was 17 was because he fucking flexed on the haters to reveal information about this person, seemingly, so that he goaded people into figuring out who this person was, to identify who this person was. And then they did. It makes no fucking sense. And now that they did, now he's cooked. Just yesterday, he lied by claiming there was nothing to give to the police. In yet another shocking case of self-sabotage, the Omni liberal claimed yesterday he had no evidence to give to the police regarding Rose. Today, Willie Mack Show posted a video explicitly detailing evidence that Destiny gave him, including file names purported CSAM sent by Rose. Destiny goes on to confess that he has made copies of not just his friend's messages, but all with Rose and all attachments. Would he be incapable of going to the police with these files? If you send me this, I'm guessing you still have that video, he says. He says he's not sure if she was under 18 when the video was taken. The video title just commented on a date that is obviously before is claimed to be her 18th birthday. As if this couldn't get any more bizarre, Destiny goes on to tell Willie that the reason he is preserving this evidence is to help a potential investigation. The exact thing he told Eli B again, he wasn't able to do. Incredible stuff, Steven. Bro, at its most, there is also obviously a permanent victimhood narrative here at the heart of everything. It's like he distributes revenge porn that he has filmed both consensually and unconsensually of other people to a random person on Discord in an effort to fuck that person because he wants to fuck that person. Turns out the person is also 17, which is, extra insane and criminal. Okay. But even in that process, he's been able to try and present himself as the real victim here. Is well, my porn got leaked too. It's bro, why were you sending it out? The fuck do you mean? Why were you distributing it? Why were you filming it without the consent of both parties? Why were you distributing it without the consent of all parties involved? This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But clearly, even though plenty of people initially were like, oh man, I'm actually very upset about this, they still turned around and eventually found that there was a good reason to protect Destiny here, to defend Destiny here, because he's his enemies are so much worse than him. Me, ironically enough, that's what they literally think. That I'm actively terrorizing the country. I'm a hater of America. I want to sabotage America. I'm a terrorist. And he's the only bulwark against growing communism in the country that they've been deluded into thinking is a reasonable force to reckon with, or even a scary one at all. Yeah, it turns out Pedstiny reminds me of Onision, but the debate lore version. Yeah, if Onision was at least a convincing enough debater, he probably would have been able to maintain his career, I guess. He is trying to present himself as a victim once again in this process too. He's well, I was just duped. I was duped by a 17-year-old. I'm actually the real victim here. Yeah, here's the other victim here, primary victim, Drew Pavlov. For God's sake, why couldn't Destiny just not be like this? Bro, I made all these pro-Destiny videos with my face in them. This should be a wake-up call for a lot of people in his cult. This should be a wake-up call for a lot of his orbiters that maybe everything he was saying was a fucking lie from the start. If he always operated this way and you found him to be a charismatic figure, perhaps you were deluded into shaping your worldview around the personal vendettas of a fucking maniac, a sociopathic villain. And I know that cult deprogramming takes a lot of effort, but considering that this is just someone you have no interest in, someone who you don't know at all, when you find out that they're a fucking freak, this is a good point of severance, the easiest exit ramp of all time, to be yeah, this is my breakoff point. Perhaps the things that he was saying and doing all along might have been to serve his own personal agendas, to serve his own personal vengeance mission. Everything he does for himself. It's not like he's like fucking hiding it either. That's it. So, you know, I welcome people finally coming to that conclusion on their own. It took far too long, but it is wild. Yeah. Anne has stupid take and claims Destiny isn't a pedophile. Destiny responds by saying, no, actually, I am a pedophile. What the fuck?
Trapped in a cave looking for diamonds. That's funny. I'm in the same cave looking for miners.
What? What is even happening over there, man? I don't want to know. It's like one of those things that's like so gross that I don't even want to touch that. That's my third rail, you know? I don't fucking, oh God. I feel like I'm staring into the void and it's staring back at me. That guy is also a pedo. Jesus Christ. It's just the ultimate debate pervert tactic. Neuter your opponent by admitting to being a pedophile. I know, but like, I just don't, I don't. His subreddit is deleting posts about it. His cult will never snap out of this. I don't think there is. I mean, I think this has entered a different stage now, especially considering that some of his most like loyal community members and orbiters, a self-described term, by the way, are actively jumping ship, and his community is marginal. It's ultimately very loyal, but it's tiny, and it only works when there are other seemingly objective, other external forces that he can deploy. Like Willie Slopshow is a great example of this. This guy used to be another one of his orbiters. He jumped ship when the revenge porn stuff came out. Many other examples as well. But like very clearly, it's now come to that point. So I think that there is going to be even more pushback from people that are around him. His mods are deleting stuff. Yeah, I know. That's not surprising to me at all. I'll be honest with you. That's not even remotely surprising to me at all. I mean, look at LSF. They also, like, they're very good at brigading Reddit. I'll give them that. They're very good at brigading Reddit, and they're very good at like creating an environment of plausible deniability. But there are certain things that you just can't continue doing when the crime is far too severe. It usually leads to people even in your own community going, nah, that's gonna fucking tarnish your good reputation forever, and it should. The only reason why I think it's gotten to this position is because there was never accountability. For far too long, he just kind of got away with doing stuff like this because it's not the first time he's done shit like this. I mean, there are so many different clips of him just like openly talking about how he thinks 15-year-olds are hot. So many messages that he's put out there, and people were able to just like avoid seeing this, avoid recognizing that this was like weird behavior. So he said in a leaked chat, I can just meme it away and they'll believe me. Yeah, I mean, he thinks his audience is comprised of absolute buffoons. That's true. Like he genuinely thinks that his audience is very stupid, and the remainder of his audience is very stupid. Let's be real. Like even if you think like there is good reason to still defend him because he's still ultimately a force for good, like there's no like philosophical ethics justification for how much harm he is able to do to anyone and everyone in his vicinity. And if you can't comprehend that like this person's moral compass is completely out of whack, especially when he's behaving like this with regular fucking frequency for the past 2 decades of his like media career, I don't know what more you need to see. At a certain point, you have to really reflect on who you are listening to, whose worldview are you adopting, who's playing a formative role in your understanding of the world. For me, I thought maybe the consistent consistent failure of his analysis would have been good enough for some people to jump ship. I love that this is what I mean. There are still people who will actively fight his battles. Obviously, far less in numbers now. 2022 is the last time he spoke. And then once in 2023, comes back in here just to say, deny, deflect, attack. Sounds like self-report, literally you. The question I have for someone like this guy, is really reflect on all of the things, that you have heard about me. Almost all of them have come from Destiny's community. Okay? Do you feel like it was a negative framing that actually took root and caused you to believe that I am a defender of certain indefensible things, a person who's done awful shit? If you were to close your eyes and think like, if you're defending Destiny right now, then I certainly have not done anything even remotely as bad. I've done nothing that is even remotely criminal. It's all pure fabrication. Honestly, I liked you before, but I saw through the bullshit since the Ethan debate. Oh God, that's an even dumber thing to admit. Jesus Christ. You're doing Destiny's work for him. You coming in here trying to point the fingers elsewhere is literally his deflection strategy. No, for sure. Like turning around and being like, Hassan has received unsolicited nudes. This is exactly the same. No, it's not. And nobody fucking thinks that. You can just keep repeating it to an increasingly shrinking audience of fucking sycophants, but that's not the same. That's ridiculous. And it's that lack of accountability that unironically causes a person like Destiny to continue spiraling out of control, because without any sort of accountability whatsoever, of this sort, you just feel like you're ultimately incredibly powerful, far more powerful. Like no one can hold you back. And then you keep doing these incredibly selfish and increasingly more harmful things to other people. Like even going through the process, it's like I bought a house for myself and my family. People make up that my father is a billionaire. He's not. But even if he was, it still wouldn't make any sense as like a reasonable point of contention. He's not. I take care of him. I take care of my whole family financially, and I'm very fortunate to be able to do so. Hassan doesn't donate, or if he actually donates publicly, then it's actually just for show. All of his fundraisers amount to nothing. Hassan doesn't go outside. Okay, when he goes outside, he should get arrested for, violating laws. Like it's at a certain point you have to realize it's not even about politics. You just like have developed personal enmity towards a content creator for no fucking reason whatsoever. You just were primed into feeling this way, and you made it into a much larger issue in your mind and in the communities that you frequent. The greatest example of this is the whole idea that like I was going to go to jail or something because they were saying I was like threatening to kill a random chatter with a gun. That wasn't the case at all. Someone had issued a death threat, and I jokingly flashed my airsoft and said, good luck. And that is a perfectly normal thing to do. That is, it's not like a death threat at all. And they tried to, they whipped themselves up into a frenzy thinking Hassan is going to go to prison any day now. And of course it never happened. Why the fuck would it happen? That's ridiculous. Me saying even if it was a real gun, me saying like, I'm going to defend myself. So to someone who is issuing a death threat as I was laughing is not, that's not a bannable offense at all. But for some people that only get their notes from like Asmongold, Ethan Klein, and Destiny's community, they thought this is it. This is the moment that he goes down. But that moment never came. But that resentment still continued, and it probably festered, and it grew in that process, because then you said Hassan is an unaccountable force. He must control the media. Okay? Take accountability for mistakes. Literally admit when you're wrong, and that's it. Not gonna lie, the speed of that snipe is crazy. Not really. Literally, when even flashy, you're on Twitch, not Kick. Plausible deniability. Wait, what? I am on Twitch, and I did it on Twitch. I didn't get banned for it. And the reason why I didn't get banned for it is because I didn't do something that was bannable. And the very same people that actually loved when Moist Critical did it to Sneeko fucking hated it when I did it to a random person that was coming in here to issue a death threat to me. One must ask the question, why? Because a lot of this stuff online is just parasocial activities, okay? You identify with a content creator and you develop a personal relationship with a content creator that doesn't actually exist. And then you think that there is a real issue when that favorite content creator turns around and says, this is a real issue. And then you go and you wage their battles. at his behest, but it doesn't actually go anywhere. So then when it doesn't go anywhere, you go, well, there's got to be an alternative reason as to why this didn't go anywhere. It's not because my favorite content creator was wrong and he actually made a mountain out of a molehill. It must be because he has a tremendous amount of power. He must be all powerful. He must be controlling. He must be the puppet master behind Twitch. A lot of these people rightfully call out the Republican Party and the MAGA cult. They call out the MAGA cult for how insane it is. They call out Republicans for how uneducated their decision making is. And yet, they have deluded themselves into thinking in an identical way that just makes no sense whatsoever when it comes to someone like myself. They can't comprehend it. They're like, why is mainstream media not aware of this? Maybe they just didn't watch the right YouTube videos. Or maybe they're adults. Maybe they don't have a parasocial relationship developed with the content creator that is now outed as a pedophile procurer of child sexual abuse material that you did. Maybe normal people who don't spend every waking moment online trying to look for new lolcow targets, okay, adults with a job, journalists, academics and the like, they actually see a guy like Sex Pestiny and they go, ew, gross. Why is he debating ethical CP? Ew, gross. He said that white supremacists should mow down Black Lives Matter protesters. That's fucking insane. Okay, that's it. And they just write that shit off instead of going, hold up, let me hear this guy out. Because when you say, hold up, let me hear this guy out, you seemingly start singing in a very different frequency. You start defending things that you previously thought were indefensible. He makes points. Okay. I've seen it. I've seen it happen in my own community. There's a, you'll have like a loyal fan, okay, who spent months, if not years in here. And then there's like one issue where they disagree with me on, and then they look for like someone to provide a counter narrative. And instead of like making up their own mind, they just they fall to the mercy of another person. And if that person has any motion whatsoever or can make a credible counter narrative fit that gives them a sense of comfort, they go, oh, this is my new intellectual daddy now. And then they become lifelong fucking haters. But in the process, like I've pulled logs before of people that literally would be like anti-racist, actively fighting against white supremacy, only to turn around a couple months later to say like, no, white people should be able to say the N-word. It's like, how the fuck did this happen? Well, I know how it happened. It's because you went to the community of a guy who couldn't even actually clean up his own home, clean up his own backyard, be a good father to his own son, who literally allowed his own son to become a fucking neo-Nazi. A guy who can't even be a good father to his own son, who can't even stop him from being in the mercy of alt-right politics and neo-Nazis. How the fuck is he supposed to be a guy who shepherds people away from reactionary politics? One must ask themselves, perhaps he's not shepherding you away from reactionary politics at all. He's just adding the Democrat, the Democrat designation to reactionary politics. That's it. So if you're like a, I don't know, 37-year-old or whatever, and you grew up in the Gamergate era, and you loved all the shit that they were doing on 4chan poll, okay? And you're looking for someone who is going to best everyone else intellectually, and he still maintains that same edgy nihilistic streak when arguing on issues because he doesn't care about anything and simply cares about winning the optics of an argument, and still allows you to say the N-word and things of that nature, and still allows you to be edgy, still allows you to like cyber stalk people. But now these new villains are no longer like liberal journalists, if you were like a Gamergate guy, but instead now it's the scary leftist communist socialists that are trying to do terrorism on US soil, and you delude yourself into believing this narrative. Did you actually grow from your past positions? Did you actually learn an alternative way of existence? Did you actually change your mind at all? Or do you just still do the same exact shit that you were doing, but instead of calling yourself like a neo-Nazi or alt-right or whatever, you're just now calling yourself a Democrat? just simply calling yourself a Democrat and still being a fucking racist doesn't mean that you've changed at all. You're still an edgelord, and you still need to grow up. And that comes from within. That's it. Hassan, you said you were doing Zumba on a rooftop when 9/11 happened. Not cool, bro. Yeah, that's a joke. It's me making a joke about Islamophobia. Anyway, so much of this also... so much of this also is just like simply just offering zero charity to people that you have designed as like a permanent enemy. You know? Enough well poisoning. This guy's my permanent enemy. So therefore, even if he's making a joke, it's like very clearly, I'm going to take it seriously. I'm not even going to think about it. I'm not even going to think about like what that might be about, you know? It's 2001. I was 10 years old. Are you fucking stupid? I was in Turkey. What do you mean? I was trying to make a joke. My bad, dog. My bad, gang. It's all good. Sorry for popping off on you. 2024 response thread, if you want to compare it to this year. No, I have it right here. The Hasanabi Census website. Yeah, I said I gave $7 million for this puff piece. I paid $7 million for the puff piece. Like, it's like taking that seriously. But then again, it doesn't take much. Because there's people that fucking literally think, and we got the Ghislaine Maxwell stuff too, and I'm obviously going to cover that as well. But people straight up, they believe like AI articles about my dad being a fucking billionaire and shit. And it's because like you're actively looking for a reason. I have to pee. But yeah, I'm going to do the census in a second. Hold on. Let's do California redistricting for a moment,
the outcome of the midterm elections next year. California Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill yesterday which could give Democrats an advantage in that state's congressional races. He says it's all an effort to balance a similar measure that helps Republicans win extra seats in the state of Texas. Ed O'Keefe is following all the back and forth from Washington. Ed, good morning.
Tony, good to see you. You know, if you live in some other state, you might be wondering, why does this matter? Well, this political battle is happening in the two most populated states, but it infects the entire country because it's all about the balance of power in Congress. Historically, a president's party loses congressional seats in the midterm elections. Republicans have a slim majority in the House, so they're looking for every possible win. California Democrats moved quickly Thursday to start redrawing the Golden State's congressional map. The move sets up a special election in November.
They fired the first shot, Texas.
It's in response to a Texas redistricting plan that's poised to shift several Lone Star State districts away from Democrats in favor of Republicans, starting with next year's elections. The GOP hopes to win 5 more of the state's 38 House seats, fulfilling a request by President Trump. Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott defends the changes, saying he's doing what Democratic-controlled states have already done.
These blue states had already gerrymandered their states so dramatically, there's really hardly any Republicans they can squeeze out of congressional districts.
Final passage of the new map seems inevitable, given the GOP's total control of Texas state government. But it was delayed by Democratic lawmakers who left the state in protest.
We're going to still continue to fight. We're going to take this to the courts.
And in doing so, they convinced California Democrats to act.
We're responding what occurred in Texas. We're neutralizing what occurred, and we're giving the American people a fair chance.
But unlike in Texas, members of the minority party in California stayed to fight.
Some point to Texas as a justification for this proposal, but California doesn't follow. We lead.
The redistricting fight might not stop with just these 2 states. President Trump on Thursday said again other red states that are also looking to redraw their maps include Missouri, Indiana, and Florida. And in New York, the Democratic-controlled government there is still thinking about possibly redrawing the map as well. Vlad?
No more high road. Remember, no more high road, baby. I think it's good. I think it's good that the Democrats are doing this. We should hold them to account to ensure that the new positions that are opening up, the new districts that would open up in the process are filled with progressive, actual left politicians. So to think that like Gavin Newsom is the answer is also incorrect. Gavin Newsom is not the answer. The reason why I haven't done the census yet is because things got pushed back a little bit with Daniel Besner coming on the broadcast. That's the reason why I haven't done the census yet. Okay? I will eventually.
This is radical rigging of a midterm election. Radical.
And I got to eat real quick.
Rigging of an election. Destroying, vandalizing this democracy the rule of law. So I'm sorry. I know some people's sensibilities. I respect and appreciate that. But right now, with all due respect, we're walking down a damn different path. We're fighting fire with fire, and we're going to punch these sons of bitches in the mouth.
Mr. President, if I got two questions for you, one on FIFA, the other one on DC. Let's talk. Can you talk about the economic impact that FIFA will have in these cities, and what's your message to the mayors to get their cities prepared, not only the beautification process, but also the safety aspect?
Well, Los Angeles is an example. You know, it's poorly run. We have a mayor there that can't even get permits to the people that lost their houses. Lee Zeldin got every permit. The hardest permit is the federal permit. Within 20 days, every single permit was there for the people to build their houses. But people are writing us and they're saying they won't give us. The mayor is incompetent. The governor's incompetent. You know, Gavin, I know Gavin very well. He's an incompetent guy with a good line of bullshit. And he doesn't get the job done. And frankly, those people want to build their houses. It's terrible. They could have been built. Some of them could have been built already. But think of it, the federal government that has the most complex part, and it's the most complex environmental thing to do. We got it, everybody had it within 30 days. And they're not even close to getting their permits. And now they're talking about taking some of those sites and building low-income housing on them. These are high-end neighborhoods. And I'm all for low-income housing. I built a lot of low-income housing. I know all about 236. I know every program that there is in the government. I used every one of them. I know more about low-income housing than probably almost anybody. And it's great. It's fine. It's wonderful. But you don't build it in Pacific Palisades. You don't build it there, and you don't build it in the other areas that burn down.
What a fantasy.
So they're talking about putting up low-income housing. And you talk about riots. They're going to have...
I wish. Imagine the rebuilding process is handled by the state, where they actually do address the housing shortage in the process of rebuilding in the aftermath of the wildfires, turning a devastating tragedy into something that is literally better for every single person living in Los Angeles and the victims themselves of this natural disaster. When he says that would cause people to riot, he's talking about rich people. It's not happening anyway. It's just so fucking crazy. At least I'm not aware of any initiative to build affordable housing in any of the impacted areas whatsoever. That sounds psychotic.
Riots if that happens, because you're taking the people's property away. They want to build their houses and they're unable to get permits from the mayor and from the governor. And that's a terrible thing. But, and let me tell you, if I didn't send in the troops in Los Angeles, Johnny wouldn't be in Los Angeles. You wouldn't be having your World Cup there. I sent in the troops and we kept it. And even the police commissioner, the sheriff and the police commissioner, they all said the same thing. They said, we could have never handled what was happening. You saw that, you were there. He said, we could have never handled what was happening. And then you hear Gavin Newsom, after it's all quelled, you hear Newsom get up and say, we could have done this for ourselves. No, they couldn't have.
I mean, it just doesn't make any sense for Gavin Newsom. It goes against everything that I know about Gavin Newsom for him to like build affordable housing. Like, there have been a million opportunities for him to do so. He's never taken them. He's actively undermined those initiatives. So him doing this in the aftermath of a wildfire sounds extraordinary.
And now to that breaking news. Within the past hour, the US Justice Department has released transcripts and recordings of interviews an official conducted with Jeffrey Epstein's imprisoned former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. In them, Maxwell recalls a number of meetings with Donald Trump and Epstein, but she says she never saw Donald Trump do anything inappropriate.
I certainly never witnessed the president in any of, I don't recall ever seeing him in his house, for instance. I actually never saw the president in any type of massage setting. I never witnessed the president in any...
Oh, wow. You mean to tell me Donald Trump got exonerated by a pedophile who was known to perjure and has actively lied to offer protective cover to other pedophiles, like Prince Andrew, for example? Huh. Interesting. You don't say. Wait, you mean to tell me that Ghislaine Maxwell, the pedophile and child sex trafficker, who now is presented as the sole witness to Donald Trump's innocence, is actually in the hands of the state already, and Donald Trump has already given her some leniency in the process of extracting this kind of false confession out of her? No way. Well, I'm the dumbest guy in America. I am a Trump cultist loyalist who thinks Donald Trump is a white hat pedophile, so of course I believe her.
Inappropriate.
Oh, you libtard, don't you say believe all women? That's the energy we're gonna fucking hear from some of the dumbest people.
Setting in any way. The president was never inappropriate with anybody. In the times that I was with him, he was a gentleman in all respects.
Let's bring in our US correspondent Martha Kellner now, who's in Los Angeles. Evening to you, Martha. Look, there's been a clamour for weeks now, months really, for more files on Epstein to be released. So was this...
Guys, I know we covered this initially, but it is important to repeat some basic facts here. The person that Ghislaine Maxwell is talking to in that recording is the Deputy Attorney General, who only got that position under the Trump Department of Justice because he was Trump's personal lawyer. The Attorney General, the top cop in the country, Pam Bondi, also was Trump's personal lawyer. Make no mistake, Trump put his own loyalists into positions of power for this exact reason. From the very moment that Ghislaine Maxwell was floated as the sole witness to cracking the Jeffrey Epstein criminal case, the sole witness to showing like the collaborators, the list of collaborators to Jeffrey Epstein. The moment that was presented as an option, I was like, she's going to get a pardon and she's going to say everybody's innocent. And lo and behold, it turns out that's precisely what the transcripts have shown. Shocker. In the process, though, she did go to a different facility, a much more lenient facility. So she's just playing ball.
Expected or a surprise?
I think there has been a huge clamour, Matt, for these interviews, this audio to be released. We're still making our way through the transcript at the moment. 6 hours worth of audio recorded over 2 days. But as you say, people calling for more information amid also calls for the release of the entirety of the Epstein files. This is an interview that Ghislaine Maxwell did with Todd Blanche, who is the Deputy Attorney General, the second most senior lawyer in the government. She conducted this interview nearby the prison that she was serving a 20-year sentence for helping Jeffrey Epstein abuse underage girls. She has since been moved to a different prison in Texas. But these files were posted on social media by Todd Blanche. He said they were shared in the interest of transparency. And the Trump administration want to be seen to be being transparent in this case, amid calls for the release of the so-called Jeffrey Epstein files, and also the spotlight that has been placed on the president's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. They were known to be friendly. On the face of it, as you were hearing there, this seems to be good news for Donald Trump. Ghislaine Maxwell saying she never witnessed.
I joked about this, man. I said this as a joke when it was like floated as like Ghislaine being the sole witness, the primary witness here. I said she's going to come out and be like, Donald Trump is the best. He has been so fascinatingly cordial around women and has never been around underage women at all. And that's literally what she fucking said. Yeah. The only thing missing from the equation is, yeah, her being like, Trump is totally loaded. He's packing. He has the fattest penis of all time, which I've never seen because, of course, like, I've never seen it because, like, he's only engaged in consensual acts of sex with adult women that were consenting and not around me at all, of course. Never around Jeffrey Epstein either. But, like, everyone always says he's got a fat one. You know, he's got a real fat one, dude. Thick 8. That's what they're saying. Please give me a pardon.
Donald Trump being inappropriate with young girls. She also said that no client list exists. Now, Jeffrey Epstein died. It was ruled that he died by suicide in prison in August 2019. He was awaiting trial, accused of abusing hundreds of girls over the course of decades. The FBI, as I say, ruled that suicide. Ghislaine Maxwell was asked whether she believed that Jeffrey Epstein's death was by suicide. This is what she responded.
Oh, wait.
So you think he did not die by suicide, given all the things we just talked about?
I do not believe he died by suicide, no.
And do you believe that, do you have any speculation or view of who killed him?
No, I don't.
Now, Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyer, David Marcus, has been responding to the release of these audio files.
You were supposed
He
to
said
say
Ms.
Clinton.
Maxwell answered every question. She did not refuse to respond and did not dodge any question. She supported her answers.
Guys, understand something here. Donald Trump brought the head of a foreign adversary that we are directly at conflict with, Vladimir Putin, to Alaska, specifically so Vladimir Putin could say, I would have never invaded Ukraine if Donald Trump was the president. This man is willing to throw away leverage that he may or may not even have in geopolitical incidents that we have a lot of investment in, just so that he can get a fucking I told you so moment. Okay? What makes you think he's not going to offer freedom to a pedophile sex trafficker of minors just so she plays ball and says Trump is a gentleman with a fat hog and is incredibly gentlemanlike around women and has never been around me or Jeffrey Epstein in any other capacity other than being a gentleman? I actually saw him save children from a burning orphanage. If a dude is willing to genuflect to a foreign adversary in a way that is like definitely uncharacteristic of any other leader and simply uncharacteristic of Trump to do so as well, with respect to like how he deals with other foreign ally leadership, simply so that Vladimir Putin can like get a dunk off of Joe Biden, he will absolutely offer pardon to Ghislaine Maxwell. I mean, he did it with the January 6ers. He did this with January 6ers. Not to sound too much like a lib, but like he straight up said, if you're doing crimes, no matter how ridiculous said crimes are, as long as you're doing those crimes for me, as long as you are doing those crimes to defend me or defend my interests, you will not face legal scrutiny. He even entertained the notion of pardoning Diddy out of nowhere. And we know why he entertained that notion is because Diddy used to be his friend. That's it. He straight up said it. He was like, maybe I'll pardon Diddy. I'm thinking about it. I have the power to do so, you know. And it's like, the fuck? Like, who is this for? It's wild, man.
With documents and other objective evidence, her demeanour and credibility are clear for anyone to hear. This, though, won't make this episode disappear for Donald Trump. There is still large calls, not least from people within the Republican Party, for the release of the full Epstein files. But we do now have this audio of an interview that Ghislaine Maxwell gave to the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, last month.
As far as I'm concerned, President Trump was always very cordial and very kind to me. And I just want to say that I admire his extraordinary achievement
Oh my God.
becoming the president now, and I like him, and I've always liked him. So that is the sum and substance of my entire relationship with him.
What about Mr. Epstein's relationship with him?
I don't know how they met, and I don't know how they became friends. I certainly saw them together, and I remember the few times I observed them together that they were friendly. I mean,
Was
they
that
seemed
in
friendly.
social settings or was that in private settings?
I believe I only ever saw.
There's no gun to her head. The gun to her head is her freedom. That's the gun to her head, chatters. She wants freedom. And she knows she'll get it if she plays ball. Following basic logic, the only reason she would agree to speak and exonerate Trump in doing so is if she was promised relief from her conditions by doing so. If they didn't offer that, she would have no reason to agree to speak, because what's in it for her? And if she did speak and implicated Trump, they would absolutely crack down on her even harder. It's self-preservation. Exactly. Here's how prosecutors described Ghislaine Maxwell in a pretrial motion during her criminal trial. The defendant's willingness to brazenly lie under oath about her conduct, including some of the conduct charged in the indictment, strongly suggests her true motive has been and remains to avoid being held accountable for her crimes. Yeah. The difference, however, is that there's usually additional penalties that come along with that. Perjury. They didn't even follow through on the perjury because she was already convicted of the other heinous crimes anyway that she perjured herself about. But in this situation, lying is actually a lifeline for her. So of course she's going to do it. And worst of all, she is going to get away with it. Make no mistake. She already has gotten away with it. Even if she was like in a lower security prison as she is now, that's it. Maybe she gets a work release in the process. Ghislaine Maxwell said she only knew Kevin Spacey from the trip to Africa with Bill Clinton and Chris Tucker and nowhere else. But what's this photo of her and Spacey on thrones? I'm telling you right now, she is like actively hiding every single power player's allegiance to Jeffrey Epstein and involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. I think that's part of the reason why she's not dead right now and very much alive right now. This was obviously one of the theories that was floated. Like, how is Ghislaine Maxwell still alive when Jeffrey Epstein is not? Perhaps it was because they could deploy her in this way maybe in the future. And now they are.
In the social settings. I don't recall any private settings.
Have you ever been to Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach?
I have.
And what time period are you thinking about when you say yes?
Well, I don't remember when the president purchased Mar-a-Lago, so from whenever it turned into a club, I went there, and I was...
Did you go there alone or with Mr. Epstein?
Mostly alone. Only times I went there was for an event, maybe once or twice.
And do you know whether Mr. Epstein ever went there?
I believe he did, but again...
Bro, this person is talking about Jeffrey Epstein like I would talk about Jeffrey Epstein as a person who learned about this by reading about it in the news. What do you mean? Oh, I don't know. I think he might have gone. It's like you were literally slammed in his ass cheeks for like 3 fucking decades. What do you mean you don't know? Of course she knows. She knows everything. She's literally making it seem like she's just a totally oblivious third party. It's like, did Jeffrey Epstein ever go to Mar-a-Lago? She's like, who? Jeffrey Epstein. Who's that again? Jeffrey Epstein. You know, the guy you were convicted for sex trafficking minors with? I can't recall his name. It's at the tip of my tongue. What, Jedediah? Is that, what, who is this person? The New York financier? Is that?
We really were, he didn't take me with him all the time, so he would go and, oh, right. Well, he did from time to time, but he would go alone. I think he would maybe go himself to the spa. I certainly did.
Did you ever observe President Trump receive a massage?
Never.
Did you ever observe, you said that you were...
What was that? Oh, right. What did he do that she responded with, oh, right. Oh, yes, of course. Yes, very nice. Yes, you're so right. You're not far off, top Blanche. But from what you know, you do not believe a camera exists, or a video camera, or a camera that takes pictures inside of any of his residences. Correct. Come on, man. She also tried to clear Bill Clinton. Oh. Trump today. Bill Clinton was on his plane and went to the island 28 times. Ghislaine Maxwell. He never, absolutely never went. And you're not, I think you said you don't. You're not aware of President Clinton ever going to the island. He never, absolutely never went. And I can be sure of that because there's no way he would have gone. I don't believe that there's any way he would have gone to the island had I not been there, because I don't believe he had an independent friendship, if you will, with Epstein. Well, mutually assured pedophilia destruction remains. But of course, as I've stated before, it's too much of a load-bearing pedophilia case to indict the Bill Clintons on. But if there's no red meat for the base here, they're going to recognize that something doesn't smell right. So it is a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. You out Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton destroys everything, mutually assured pedophilia destruction. Okay? If you don't give the people Bill Clinton, then they go, what do you mean? Bill Clinton, we know, is a active collaborator of Jeffrey Epstein and most likely a pedophile. We know that already. Why won't you say it? It turns out she went with the protect Bill Clinton route. Todd Blanche, all right, I wanted to follow up about former President Clinton's relationship with Mr. Epstein, not you. We touched on it, but can you just set the, I have a couple of questions. When did she move on past Mr. Epstein? When did I even, like after he died? I don't believe so. Why do you say that you don't believe so? Because I don't think they had a relationship even when I was there. President Clinton liked me, and we got along terribly well. But I never saw that warmth, or however you want to characterize it, with Mr. Epstein insert. So I didn't see. When the Southern District of New York case became public, there was a search warrant for Mr. Epstein's house. There was some sort of painting a picture with Mr. Clinton in a blue dress. Did you know? Do you know where he got that picture of that painting? The first I saw of it was in the press. So you never observed that in his... No. Do you know of any other gifts or paraphernalia or pictures that former President Clinton gave to Mr. Epstein? No. I mean, did he maybe give him a gift? I don't know. I have no knowledge of that. I mean, that's unironically the clearest indication, even for the Trump supporters, to look at and go, oh, this person is obviously lying. And they're not going to think this person is obviously lying to Trump's lawyer, by the way, when Trump has floated the idea of a potential pardon for her, by the way, on just Trump's infallibility and Trump's innocence here. She's lying about Bill Clinton's innocence as well. So clearly she might be lying about Trump too. I say this continues.
I mean, have you seen there's photographs, public photographs of Mr. Epstein and President Trump together?
Yes.
And there's photographs of, I think you're in some of the photographs
Yes.
as well. Those all appear to be social settings.
Yes. That's my memory. If there were social settings, I don't know. Epstein's, if he had, whatever the nature of the president's friendship, if you will, or however you want to define that with Epstein, I was never witness. I think they were friendly, like people are in social settings. I don't think they were close friends, or I certainly never witnessed the president in any of, I don't recall ever seeing him in his house, for instance. I actually never saw the president in any type of massage setting. I never witnessed the president in any inappropriate setting in any way. The president was never inappropriate with anybody. In the times that I was with him, he was a gentleman in all respects.
When's the last time you think you saw in person President Trump?
It's been a long time. Probably not. Sometime in the beginning, mid 2000s maybe, and it would only have been a social setting, as far as I recall.
And did you ever hear Mr. Epstein or anybody say that President Trump had done anything inappropriate with masseuses or with anybody in?
Well, that settles it. I'm convinced. I believe this pedophile that my favorite president is not a pedophile. Sold me. How dare you question women, libtard? I thought you said believe all women. Turns out you don't want to believe them when they're making a convincing case about our glorious president. Why do you hate America? Case closed. Why do you hate America? Guess you don't want to believe all women now, do you, libtard? That's right. I choose to believe this pedophile. Excuse me. This is a different kind of pedophile, a very superior kind of pedophile, very good at pedophilia. I believe her. Ghislaine Maxwell, anything that touches Israel or the state of Israel, I'm always interested in it because my father loved Israel, so I pay attention to it. And we have ties to Israel. This is like that Israeli cybersecurity guy who worked under Benjamin Netanyahu being like, hey, guys, I'm going to escape to Israel the moment that you let me go. Actually, can you please give me the number to the Israeli consulate? I'm Israeli, by the way. Hey, I know you just arrested me in a pedophilia sting, but I'll have you know I'm Israel high. You know, Israel. You just walk in, do like minor crimes. You just like rob a fucking you just rob a gas station. You get caught by the cops, and you're like, guys, hate to do this, but I love the Israeli state. As a matter of fact, I am Israel. I'm Israel high. People are just like, maybe this will work. Fuck it. Yeah, I mean, real minor crimes, not crimes against the minors.
Your world.
Absolutely never. In any context.
Do you know whether masseuses from Mar-a-Lago Spa ended up giving massages to, private massages to Mr. Epstein? And I'm not asking for what you may have read, but at the time, from your personal knowledge, do you know whether that's true?
I don't recall. Is it possible? Yes. But I don't remember that. So I don't recall that, but it's possible.
Do you have recollection of you ever recruiting a masseuse from Mar-a-Lago Spa to go give a private massage to Mr. Epstein?
I've never recruited a masseuse from Mar-a-Lago for that.
Yeah. So a bunch of masseuses from Mar-a-Lago just recruited themselves, underage, by the way. That's crazy. She just got hit with the She got hit with a John Fetty-Wap gun, but this time it just makes you forget all of your involvement with an internationally famous pedophile sex trafficker who, because of your involvement with him, you're currently serving a prison sentence right now. But you just forgot it all. It's crazy. Guys, everything is above board. We crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's. This is, everything checks out. And if you think it doesn't check out, well, let me tell you, okay? You're anti-Semitic. I don't know. Fuck. You are anti-Semitic. Yep, I'm going to go with that one.
Have you ever had any contact with any representative that you know of from Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agency?
Can you ask me that again?
Have you ever had any contact with an individual that you understand to be from Mossad, an Israeli intelligence agency?
Well, not deliberately.
Pardon me?
Not deliberately.
She's laughing. She's like, yeah, my dad, and also possibly me. Yeah, my father and myself, and also Jeffrey Epstein. Basically all of us. My papa. I mean, that's a fact, by the way. Like, that's not even in dispute that Robert Maxwell collaborated with the Mossad 1,000,000%. That is an indisputable, undeniable fact of life. Okay? So just so you understand, like, her involvement is, unfortunately for us, currently at the speculative level, but her dad's involvement with the Mossad, not a secret at all. That is 100p.
And did you know, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but just to put a finer point on it, did you ever know that were you ever told, do you ever think that Mr. Epstein was getting any money from any intelligence agency, including Mossad?
Well, I don't believe so, but I wouldn't know. I mean, I would be very surprised if he did. I don't think so. No.
We've talked about a lot of names, and I'm sure there's some that we haven't covered. Are there any?
So why did he have a Saudi passport? How'd that happen? Who amongst us doesn't have a Saudi passport? Jeffrey Epstein was doing the pilgrimage. It's one of the pillars of Islam. That's right. He had said the Shahada and found the light of Allah. He will see Jannah. He was going to Mecca and needed a Saudi passport. The fuck? 2357 Ehud Barak. Oh, there's, here, we'll just keep watching.
Foreign nationals. So right now we've talked about some British, the royal family a little bit, and maybe high society folks in Britain. Were there any international businessmen or politicians that had a very close relationship or a close relationship with Mr. Epstein that we haven't already talked about?
No.
Off the top of my head, I can think of Ehud Barak.
You said that Mr. Epstein, at some point in the mid to late 90s, he started taking testosterone.
What? No follow-up? I'm sorry. Well, he's going to go back to it. Did he say Barak? Yes. Ehud Barak, former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, which everybody knows was caught leaving the Epstein mansion numerous times in New York.
Did you ever know him to take any other drugs?
No. I mean, he took pills for his heart, I think. But I don't know no substances.
What do you know anything about his heart condition? I know we talked about this at 9:45 this morning, but do you know anything about his heart condition and beyond that you understood he had a heart condition that affected his ability to have sex?
Other than what he told me, no, he never shared anything, but he did take pills. I don't know anything about that. And like I said, he did the testosterone, which made him mean.
And we're jumping around a little bit. Sorry. Do you know someone named Donald Barr?
No.
He is, I can represent to you, was the former headmaster of the Dalton School.
Bill Barr's father. Bro, it's crazy that, like, Todd Blanche is just in here asking all of the most, like, common Epstein-related questions, and I think the role here is, yeah, that's Bill Barr, former Donald Trump's Attorney General, Bill Barr's father, Donald Barr. I think the reason why they're doing this is to basically, like, pack up all of, in their minds, I think they believe this will pack up all of the conspiracies. Like, this will be the one big, like, see all of the shit that you thought was wrong moment. I don't think it's gonna work, though. I just don't. Especially because not only is it all stuff that we knew about already, I have seen no new information. And as a matter of fact, there are numerous instances where Ghislaine Maxwell actually contradicts something that we know is real. Like, it's not only all old information, but times where she will like actively defend the allegiance that like a known person might have had to Jeffrey Epstein. She's often just lying, and we know she's lying. She's perjuring herself because there is evidence to prove the contrary.
What you mentioned earlier.
All right.
Do you remember any conversations with Mr. Epstein about a book that Mr. Barr wrote called Space Relations?
I've never heard of that.
About aliens and sex?
No.
Do you know whether, well, have you ever met the former Attorney General of the United States, Bill Barr?
No.
Do you remember whether Mr. Epstein knew him or whether his name ever came up in conversations you had with Mr. Epstein?
I don't recall any.
Did you have a relationship, or no? I'm using relationship, and I appreciate you don't like that word. Did you know Mr. Epstein's brother, Mark Epstein?
Yes.
How did you know him?
Through Jeffrey.
How would you describe your relationship? Close, friendly?
My personal?
Yes.
Not that close, but friendly enough. I mean, you know.
How was Jeffrey Epstein's relationship with his brother Mark, from what you observed?
I mean, they were brotherly, but I think that I don't know. There are periods when they were closer, and then when they weren't. I think sometimes Epstein found his brother irritating.
And I think I know the answer is given what you just said about Bill Barr, but did you ever hear any from Mr. Epstein or anybody else that Bill Barr had any role in Mr. Epstein getting a good plea deal in Florida, or any role in that process with Mr. Acosta?
I never heard that.
I think you said this in an interview, but if I'm wrong, forgive me. Do you have a view of Mr. Epstein, of whether he committed suicide or whether something else happened?
Can we take a break?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can take a break.
This is too traumatic for my client, and not because of not because of her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. As you can tell, she doesn't even know who Jeffrey Epstein is. It's just that it's traumatic because she just doesn't remember anything, and it's a reminder that she just simply cannot remember anything at all.
Yeah, sure. Actually, it's a good time to take a break anyway, because this will be the last one of the day.
All right, so we're going to take a break at it's 2:53, Thursday, July 24th. We are continuing with the recorded proffer of Ms. Maxwell. The time is now 3:10 p.m., Thursday, July 24th.
My colleagues alerted me to a couple questions I think I may have forgotten to ask you.
Most pathetic guy on Twitch, Hamas Piker. Nowadays, this is probably the worst time to say that, you know? Because the people that have this kind of energy can only be coming from one of like 4 or 5 different communities, and many of them are battling their own internal demons at this very moment. Some of them have tarnished their entire good reputation that they've built after being YouTube legends because of their psychosexual obsession. Others have been outed as pedophiles. Some were already outed as being bald sexual assaulters, generational sexual assaulters. Some are no longer the #1 political content creator on the platform after Twitch started tackling bots. So it kind of feels like this is perhaps one of the worst moments, one of the most inopportune moments to say stuff like this. Because like automatically you're positioning yourself as someone who may or may not be, or at least in recent history, definitely were in favor of a person who recently got outed as trying to solicit CSAM. It's odd situation to put yourself in, I think, for no reason. Bad look, chatter. The vindication is here. Nah, this is our rare extra Emily fan who just fucking hates you. Yeah.
One is, sorry, I'm just going through my notes. Well, we talked a few minutes ago about this birthday book that there's been press about. I understand you don't remember anything with President Trump, or a lot about the book anyway. Do you remember asking President Trump to submit a letter for that?
I do not.
And do you remember, would you have been the one to do that, or would somebody else have done that?
I did ask some people. I don't remember Mr. Trump. I don't remember who I did ask, but Epstein also asked people himself directly.
Okay.
So it could have happened that way, if it happened at all.
Where is that?
You mentioned Ehud Barak.
Yes.
What was his involvement?
This would have been in the later 2000s, so I do not know how they met, but I do know that they, I don't know if friendly would be the right word, I don't know that, but I know that they saw each other, and only because my father, anything that touches Israel or the state of Israel, I'm always interested in, because my father loved Israel, and so I pay attention to it, and we have ties to Israel.
Would you say?
Indubitably. Ew. As you know, my father is quite the ties to Israel. Very interesting. Yeah, we know your dad had ties to Israel.
It was later though.
Ties meaning friends and family
relations. Aha. Yes, just simply ties. Your reactions are really shit. Not like my favorite reactor, Hassan Pecker. Yeah, Hassan is better. Hassan Pecker is better. Here, I'll do Hassan Pecker's reaction. Hell yeah, Israel's the most moral nation on the planet. They even want to legalize child brides here in America. And also, I'm in favor of all of that. We need to give $100 billion to Israel right now. Can we lower the age of consent here, please? Is that good? Is that better? Yeah. I hope Trump comes and deports my wife. She's a bitch. I hope Trump deports my bitch-ass wife. And then all my taxes go to Israel.
The prominent was Mr. Barak, Prince Barak. Do you know what the nature of his relationship was with Mr. Epstein?
Damn you, Deborah. You took everything from me. Everything actually belongs to Israel.
I don't.
Do you know, were you ever with them together?
I think I have a memory of meeting Ehud, but I don't know if he was with Epstein or, I don't remember. I just know that I did see him, and I'm struggling to remember the context around it.
Oh, so you're telling me you met the former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, someone Jeffrey Epstein had close associations with, and you just simply cannot recall when, how, why that took place. That's crazy. That's a crazy thing. Not a memorable person to meet at all. You don't understand. I meet foreign heads of state all the time in my pedophilia sex trafficking operations that we're doing at the behest of ourselves, and not a foreign nation state, of course. It's very normal. He's very boring. Unremarkable, really.
I'm sure it happened, but it must have been very brief, because I don't have any serious memory of it. Any, deep memory of it.
And maybe...
Okay. It's getting late. It's already 4 p.m. We got EU chatters in here, staying awake late at night, waiting to be a part of the census. The Hasanabi Census Bureau is alive and well. We'll do this, and then we'll go back to Jeffrey Jedediah Epstein, the most unjustly maligned pedophile sex trafficker of all time. And the interview that took place with the second most unjustly maligned person, Ghislaine Maxwell, who also totally is apparently innocent. But we're going to do the census now.
Damn, this guy's good.